Yes.
That's a Tuesday night, yeah.
What's it again? The mayor just did.
Probably special meeting of the City Council for Thursday, January 15, 2015 in order. I'd ask that you please stand for a salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. As you sit down, just a reminder to please turn off your cell phones as they do interfere, and similar electronic devices as they do interfere with our broadcast, the audio portion of our broadcast to various parts of our city. At this time, I would ask Ms. Sharko to read the notice for the special meeting, please.
Dated January 13th, 2015, to the members of the Honorable Municipal Council from Kevin J. Dumas, Mayor. Council is by authority of Article 3, Section 3-5B of the Attleboro Home Rule Charter. I hereby call a special meeting of the Municipal Council as follows. Thursday, July 15th, 2015, 7 p.m. in the City Hall Council Chambers. The purpose is for the appropriation needed for the architectural services and any other matter that may legally come before your honorable body. And it is signed sincerely, Kevin J. Dumas, Mayor.
Thank you very much. I understand from speaking with the mayor that a lot of this information will be provided in a presentation that's going to be the meeting is following this one, correct? So I'm going to go on to a reading of the mayor's communication at this point.
January 15th, 2015. Municipal Councilors. As you may know, at its December 17th, 2014 meeting, the Municipal Building Commission, MBC, unanimously recommended that the city hire the architectural firm of Robinson, Green, Beretta, to design the new maintenance and storage building for the Department of Public Works Highway Division, as well as the new maintenance and storage building for the Water Department. Members of MBC cited RGB's experience with similar projects and experience overall, as well as its capacity to meet the tight deadlines associated with these buildings. RGB's fee for the design of the DPW Highway Division Maintenance and Storage Building on Lamb Street, which includes architectural design, structural engineering, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection services, as well as reimbursables, are directly associated with the functional replacement of the new DPW building, one of the cornerstone elements of the Phase 1A of the Downtown Urban Renewal and Revitalization Plan. Thus, and for your information, the design fees for the DPW Highway Division Maintenance and Storage Building will be paid by the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority utilizing the existing urban renewal bond. RGB's fees for the design of the Water Department's Maintenance and Storage Building on West Street is $88,000, which also includes architectural design, structural engineering, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection services, as well as reimbursables. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to appropriate $88,000 from Water Enterprise Fund Retained Earnings Account to Water Storage Facility Account. There are copies in your packets.
Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, please.
This evening, I have provided your honorable body with a summary of history of the Swank Building located on Hazel Street. Suffice it to say that this unsafe building must now be remediated and then demolished as soon as possible. In order to accomplish these tasks, Axiom Partners, Inc. is prepared to assist the city and the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority with drafting the bid specifications for both the remediation and the demolition. The cost for this assistance is $6,000. But until the building is actually remediated and demolished, we must also take any other measures to ensure that it does not pose a fire hazard. These measures include maintaining the security system and keeping the building heated at a temperature that will allow the fire suppression system to operate, especially during these colder months. Using conservative estimates, the building will require approximately 50,368 gallons of heating oil through the month of April, at an average cost of $2.54 per gallon. It is estimated that it will need $103,455.87 for heating oil alone. In addition, the estimated cost to provide for the electricity, gas, water, and security system through the month of May is $25,000. Accordingly, I hereby request your honorable body to appropriate $134,455.87 from undesignated fund balance general government account to the ARA intergovernmental account.
Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, please.
And it is signed sincerely, Kevin Day, doing this mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, I'm just, for my own planning purposes, on both of these matters, is there a certain deadline when these things need to be voted on? In other words, they did not come down as an emergency measure, but I'm just curious in terms of, is there something that needs to be done in the next several days, or can it go through the normal process?
As soon as possible, and I'll get into that in the explanation.
Okay. So in other words, by bringing it in tonight, you are anticipating that the council will vote on this matter on Tuesday night, voted, if possible? Because my only concern is, Tuesday night, I expect a very long meeting, right? And in order to do this, I will need for the Capital Improvements Committee to actually, I will need to take a recess for the Capital Improvements Committee to actually meet on this particular item. So that's why I'm wondering if it's something that needs to be voted this coming Monday night, or can we wait until the next regular scheduled meeting, February 3rd? And I know you're going to get into this later, but I mean, if you can answer that before this meeting or the next one is over, that would be...
It would be fantastic if there's the opportunity to do this first thing on Tuesday, before we get into any of the other matters that we have scheduled before us that night.
That's not going to be possible. Okay, just so you're aware of it. Given the...
Mr. President, we're committee meetings called for tonight. Could you recess tonight, have a committee?
No, committee meetings would not call for tonight. I have had Linda post one for Tuesday night, or just in case, because I wasn't sure and I didn't have a chance to find that out. But I know we will not be able to have a committee meeting prior to the start of the regular meeting on Tuesday night. And Monday's a holiday. So we've already missed the deadline for trying to get it advertised, the 48 hours. So that's why I'm just saying if we needed this on Tuesday night or not. I just needed to get clarification. I'm sure that, I don't know if Councilor Connie has anything to add at this point. I don't mean to be speaking for him. I'm just trying to plan when we can fit this in, if we have to do it on Tuesday night, that's all. Okay. Councilor Connie, you have anything to add?
Well, I'm concerned that my vice chair is still severely ill
Yeah.
and missing on what I think is a very important, this is his ward. I would like to have him well and participating.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. So again, I know you're going to get into this more detail, so it may become a little bit clearer as we go on. And again, this is being televised and recorded. And again, I know we have some people missing tonight, but I expect that if past practice follows, they'll be following up on this. But as I used to say, for some of the ball games, being there is quite the fun. So a little bit more about what's going on inside. Okay. So we'll get into this later. During the budget meeting that's following this. Okay. Let's see. The only other thing that I wanted to mention before I adjourn and we can get to that is all of you have by now received some guidelines that I developed with Linda and I sent out relative to the meeting, the joint public hearing with the planning board relative to the proposed discontinuance of a portion of Harvard Street on Tuesday evening. And I expect, as I mentioned, and it's probably, you have all probably figured by now, judging my calls or emails that you've gotten, that I expect this to be a full house and also a very long night. And in order to be fair, I have decided that I'm going to be allowing a maximum of 90 minutes of time, first for those who in support of the measure, another 90 minutes for those who are in opposition, followed by a 30-minute period for those either for or against, as you always know. This is a public hearing, and I've said this in the past periodically, and the purpose of the public hearing is to get input from the public. One of the things that I have, through my years on the council, had the opportunity to do is attend a number of public hearings held by state agencies, and some of them have been a lot more contentious than the issue that will be before us on Tuesday night. And I've always been impressed by the fact that the members of that particular agency or board will sit there, they will take input from the public, similar to what we do, asking name, address, and so forth, and asking for their comments. I have been in some where they've limited the time also. Other people have to speak. And the interesting thing is that the board members will sit there. They will not debate the issue. They will not argue points. They will not state their own position. They will only ask a question for clarification if absolutely necessary. Because again, the purpose of it is to get input from the public. Given the fact that I'm allotting 90 minutes for each group, I would just ask all of my fellow councilors to keep that in mind and, during the public hearing on that night. Because I'm already getting inquiries, or since I had these guidelines developed and they were in the paper, I have gotten comments from the public already from a couple of different sources that if councilors start asking questions, will that 90 minutes be added on to in each case, right? Because of the fact that it will be cutting into time. So I would just, again, we will have our chance as councilors, as on every other issue, to give our opinions and to debate this, right? That's when it goes back to committee, and as well as on the night that we voted. So as much as possible, I would just ask you to think a little bit about that in anticipation, and really use it as time just to get the public input, and then we can debate these issues later. And as always, if there's some areas that we need some clarification on, we can deal with that, subsequently, as we often do in committee. But I just want you to all to be aware of that going forward. Okay? So at this point, that is all that we have before the council for the special meeting for this evening, but we have a lot more to do this evening. So this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned at 7:14. Don't stretch too far. I'm just going to give up my chair. Thank you, Ms. Harper and Ms. Alger, for coming out this evening.
Do you want to be here, do you want to be over
I'm
there?
going to slide over. I'll take this with me. I have to check with
Give you
Ms. Alger or
choice of
something.
seats.
I'm showing several chairs, so. All right, I'm just going to take this with me. I just have to touch base with Linda.
Can I start or?
Yes. If you want to sign, you may. I just. I'm going to.
Oh, okay.
Who's not coming?
Mark is definitely not coming.
Yeah.
He said he wasn't going to be here.
And here's Shannon.
Oh, good thing I didn't take her chair, huh?
Well, I told Linda I was
Oh, I
coming
did
from
pass out, there was some other things here.
Oh, you have them.
Yeah.
There's additional information that was being passed around regarding the Swank property. It got to Mr. President, and he held it aside, so he'll finish passing that out. We'll call budget appropriations to order at 7:15. I want to thank you, all my colleagues, for coming in tonight. We called this additional meeting of the Budget Appropriations Committee to provide the administration a chance to give us a budget update. And in speaking with the mayor and Barry, we understand that there's quite a substantial amount of information, so that's why we didn't want to do it on a regular committee night, that we wanted to move it to a different night. So with that, Mayor and Barry, I also want to welcome our two chiefs, Chief Hegney and Chief LaChance. I want to appreciate you guys coming in. So you have quite a lengthy update for us. So you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all getting together this evening and for booking us on a special for a Thursday. As you can see from the list that I was able to put together this evening for you, and from the time period of looking at what the purpose is, to discuss changes, developments, project updates, budget overview is what the normal budget update that we come down for. But there has been a tremendous amount of work that has been done, not only by myself and Mr. Lacasse, but also by a myriad of departments in 6 months. And I thought it was important to talk about some of the things that you may not hear about or see, but functionally in some of the departments that have changed, the reasons why we've done that. And I think that it's healthy to be a part of that update and not just hear about it at budget time, but for you to be aware of that. There's been a lot of transformation and things of working together and growing within departments and changes in certain aspects. And we have been very, very busy with projects, pretty much taking most of our time between myself, Mr. Lacasse, Mr. Arazian, Mr. Almeida, and Mr. Walsh on all of the varied projects we're working on in addition to those in the water and wastewater enterprise funds. In addition to the news that just broke yesterday for the Attleboro High School rehabilitation phase construction project. So there's a lot of things to talk about, and we wanted to be able to talk about all of those tonight. I'm going to try to be as succinct as possible in respect of your time. If you have questions at the end of each section, if you feel free to ask us, or you can also at any time be able to follow up with additional questions after this. But again, this is for an update for all of you, and specifically for tonight, Barry and I will be here for the entire presentation. When each chief is finished with their portion, then they'll be leaving, and it'll just be us for the rest of the remainder of the discussion this evening.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Excellent. I'd like to be able to start off with the police department, and Chief Hagney will be talking about the 4 things that are listed on the agenda this evening. So Chief, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hope everybody's well. I think I'm coming down with something that these guys are in for. For the record, I think I caught it from the fire chief, though. Yeah, getting over it. Yeah, so I think I'm coming down with it. But nevertheless, I appreciate the mayor inviting me here tonight to address the honorable body. As you may know, with the police department, we've gone through some transformation the last couple of years, and it's culminated with a very progressive police department these days, which I'm very proud of. The men and women of our police department have really progressed to the point where we're a model agency in our area, if not our state, in some of the programs and resources that we implemented. Other police departments and municipalities are taking notice, but it's not just technology or new equipment. It's cognitive thinking on how we do our jobs and how we go out and help people solve crimes and mitigate problems holistically across our city to make our quality of life in our city better. And I commend the police work of our men and women. They've done a great, fantastic job. And that's where the rubber meets the road. It's not in my office, it's the men and women on the street that are making the difference. And I'm proud of what they've done, and I'm sure you've got the feedback from some constituents about the wonderful things they've done, and I'm going to speak about some of it tonight. First, I wanted to inform you about a policy change that I made after consulting with the mayor on something that needed to be addressed. And what we did is we went forward and on the day-to-day operations of the police department, we increased the supervision. And what I mean by that is there historically has always been a lieutenant and a sergeant working each shift. And this started back in 1976, 77. I think there's one member on the council that can help me out. when they brought lieutenants into the police department, I want to say it was 76, 77.
One lieutenant, one sergeant.
So, and what happened was the lieutenants became the shift commanders, and the sergeants went out on the road, and it increased supervision. And that was approximately 38 years ago. So you had a lieutenant inside as the shift commander, and there was a sergeant on the road. So on paper, it works. However, realistically, you have vacation, comp time, sick time. So in the real world, you usually, more often than not, only have one supervisor working on more or less all 3 shifts. Many times there's not a supervisor working, then a supervisor is working. So that is a problem. So if the lieutenant takes the night off, the supervisor on the street comes off the street and becomes the shift commander in the station. So we have no supervisor on the street. That's been the past practice for 38 years. I've recognized it in my tenure as a chief, and I've had discussions with the mayor with it, and the first opportunity we have a chance to fix it, we always said we would, and the opportunity presented itself. In this past October, we instituted backfilling for patrol supervision on the street. And holistically, it's been an enormous success. The officers see it, my command staff sees it, and the feedback that I'm getting is that we simply can't go back to the way it used to be. Things are more effective, they're more efficient. Since we've went to this mandatory street supervision, I haven't had a citizen complaint. We have supervision at calls, we have supervision at major incidents, we have supervision at major incidents such as stabbings, train fatalities. The officers first arriving on scene make or break a crime scene. What they do, how they secure it, what they do not disturb, what their first steps are in the process will make and break that case, as we're finding out in the Hernandez case also. So my recent staff meeting with them, we analyzed the pros and cons with it, and the information I got back from them is that they said, please, we do not want to go back to the way we used to. The officer and the shift commander in the station basically was blinded. Unless it's in person or over the radio, we really don't know what's going on there. So with the reducing the liability of risk for negligent supervision, certainly will be mitigated with this new policy change. And there have been incidents in the past that had there been supervision, hypothetically, we could have prevented some risk management liability exposure. So, like I said, this has been a past practice for 38 years that we're fixing now. And just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean it was the right way. So, there is some exposure with overtime in this. For this fiscal year, I don't think it's going to be a liability to come back to this council and ask for more money unless there's a major incident such as a murder or unusual occurrence that it's going to eat up a lot of overtime. I think I can manage it within my operating budget right now with the money I've been allotted. We've had a lot of retirements, as you may know. We're down 10 officers. We're going to be sending 10 officers to the police academy. We're a very young police department, extremely young. We're a young command staff. We're a young chief. We need the supervision on the street. There's no doubt about it. And like everything else, there are learning curves for these officers. There's learning curves for me. There's learning curves for my command staff. We absolutely need the supervision on the street, and it's working. And we've identified it, we fixed it, and we're moving ahead proactively. The next thing I wanted to speak about was the POP unit and some of the proactive effort the POP unit is using. It's now in effect for 1 year, and it's been a real success. The feedback that I'm getting from constituents is fabulous. The citizens love it. It's transformative. We're changing lives, and it's not a uniform officer going to the scene and trying to fix the world's problems within 5 to 6 minutes to get back into service and clear to go to the next call. These officers are problem solving by scanning, analysis, response, and assessing if it works. If it doesn't work, we've come back and tried something new. I'm very proud of their effort, even though I was the person who put it in operation. They made it go. They made it work, and I commend them. Lieutenant Cook was the first commander. He was promoted from sergeant to lieutenant in July. Sergeant Woodhead's now in command of that with Officer Caffell and Officer Hines. And it's a model that other chiefs have taken notice in other departments planning on adopting. I know you used the POP team for your issue at the school.
If I may, it was a complete transformation over at Willard Elementary School with their supervision and their advice, and it has been tremendously successful. It is a much safer environment, and what I enjoy most is that it isn't they fixed it and walked away. They check in on it periodically. They follow up. I get phone calls or emails. Counselor, how are things going over there? Are things is it maintaining what we've implemented? And it's tremendous. And I couldn't be more thrilled with the puppy. I almost want to keep it for myself and use it for. I'm trying really hard not to call you all the time.
And it works. It's a model that works, and it's very successful. And to try to as succinct as possible, it works so good that we need more. It's so effective that they're being pulled in every different direction, and now they're becoming overworked. So it's interesting that as we're more or less increasing capacity because of reducing the calls of service on one side with the uniform patrol, in the proactive patrol, directed patrols we're doing in the uniform branch, the POP unit now is so overworked, and they're actually coming with a backlog of things they have to fix and address. It works. So something we're really proud of.
You should be.
Can I just add two things
Sure.
on that? It's working so well. We're working statewide through Mass Municipal Association, the issue of the opiate drug addiction, things that we have going on. We're actually being recognized, and Chief Hegney and Officer Caffell are going to be participating in one of the breakout sessions at Mass Municipal Association to talk about some of the success stories that the Attleboro Police Department is having in dealing with the issue. And one of the things that came out of our Mayors and Selectmen Association when we're working on this issue that they found very interesting was the fact that this is dealing with the whole person. It's that person, it's the addiction, it's getting that person services, it's linking the families who are affected by this, it's linking them up with the appropriate services, because this ruins families. It ruins everyone's life who's affected by it, not just the addict themselves. And to the extent that some of the stories of what's happening for this POP unit, that they're actually taking people who want to get into recovery to get services. And even when they're rejected by certain medical institutions to say, I'm sorry, you don't use enough. You don't use enough heroin. That they will go through extraordinary measures with the approval of their supervisors and through the chief. Don't stop. They want to recover, get them the services, and they'll find a bed for them, and to get into an inpatient service. They're doing some transformative things. I thought it was really important. We're doing that breakout session at Mass Municipal Association a week from tomorrow. And also from a conference we went to for chiefs and for mayors in Arkansas, we're going to be working with the COPS program of the federal government, and to try to apply for a micro grant to try to help us expand that unit. And that would be for $100,000, and we would find out almost a year from now whether or not we get it, but we're going to apply in the spring. I told the chief we'll work together on the grant application to try to make it as successful as possible. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys really understand that's some transformative work that's going on that's very, very different, and that kind of really explains why Attleboro is different from our surrounding communities and other people in the Commonwealth who are really having some severe issues with this. Certainly everybody has issues with this, but we have less of an issue, but a lot of that is the hard work that's going on within the public safety departments, and I just want to be able to make sure all of you recognize that.
Can I share one other thing?
Sure.
Another thing we started doing, we get a list from the Sheriff's Department, the Department of Correction, and even the Rhode Island Department of Corrections, when inmates are getting released to the city of Attleboro. These officers, before the inmate's release, goes and visits that person at the jail, at the prison, and we set up a path for them how to become a better citizen in the city of Attleboro. Otherwise, we really don't want you living in our community if you can't obey our laws and help improve the city. And we know you're coming. We're gonna, once you get out, we'll greet you at your house also, and we'll check in periodically. If you need help, we'll help you. If you don't want our help, you're probably not gonna like us, but at the same time, we're not going to allow that person to reduce the quality of life in our city. There's plenty of other towns in Rhode Island and in Massachusetts that they could go live and be happy. We care about our citizens of Attleboro. We're not going to allow them to reduce that quality of life. So that's extremely proactive. And the superintendents at those jails and prisons have never seen a police department do that, to come back. It's always been, how can you help us solve more crimes? We're there for the quality of life. You're going to come back to our city. We know what you've done in the past. We're willing to help you. This isn't a law enforcement per se a visit. This is a visit on behalf of all the citizens of Attleboro. If you want to come back, there's rules. We'll help you, but there's rules. So, and some accept it and some haven't, and many have moved out. So And that's fine too. But we care about the quality of life of the city. So,
Excellent.
among other good things that they're doing.
Very good.
Chief.
Chief, I know someone who was guided to a place of employment because of that program, and of course, he spread the word. I mean, so even if one person gets it, he spreads it to other people, but
I forgot about that.
I've heard some positive things too.
The officers actually got people jobs. They went home, got them work, got them jobs. And, because idle hands, right, Devil's Workshop. So they've done some really terrific work, and I'm very, very proud of them. So,
It's full service policing
right.
in a very different way. Excellent.
One of the other things I wanted to address is I came before this honorable body to seek funds to help us create more office space in the police department. And that's active, that's ongoing. And what we've done thus far is, I initially told you that the detectives were going into the old post office. I had a vision of what was going to happen, and the mayor actually had to educate me as to, we just can't do this that your way. I thought my way was pretty streamlined and simple, but I understand that there's now architects involved and everything else. I just thought we'd put up some walls and put some desks in some rooms, and everything would be great. So he gave me a nice education as to how this has to be done, and my ignorance is my first go around regarding kind of doing some spatial remodeling in the police department. But as you know, we're in dire need of a new police station, fire station. But the reality of it, I know it's not coming tomorrow, even though we need it today. And I know there's other things in the city, but eventually down the line we'll have to address it, and hopefully it's within my career. But in the meantime, we're bulging. We need space, so we're trying to be creative and think outside the box. Thus, the officers, the court prosecutors, we've got them out of the garage. They're no longer in the garage. They're in the old post office temporarily with the problem-oriented policing unit. Once we have a plan regarding the architect and what we can come up and draw up to use the space optimally on the second floor and to create more office space up there, we'll bring them back and put the detectives over in the old post office. But until now, that's the temporary solution, where they're not in hallways or in garages, if you will. Just to give you an update, so the use is of that building is being used. It's not just what exactly right now what I told you was going to be a detectives. It's just 2 other divisions in there. So we're getting there. It's just you know how this is a process with everything, bureaucratic steps. Nevertheless. We also have first floor. We're addressing also. The fire chief and I and the mayor have been in some deep discussions regarding dispatch. Our city has certainly grown. As far as I can remember, there's always been 2 dispatchers on duty historically in the city, and I don't know when they had a single dispatch, or I don't know if you remember, Chief, but there's as far as I can remember, there's always been 2 dispatchers on duty. Our calls for service has certainly gone up. We did 71,000 calls of service last year. That's a lot. The dispatchers are doing a great job with what they have to work with, but they're being overwhelmed right now. And there's a lot of unfunded mandates coming down from the state, such as a medical emergency dispatch. The officers have to be, the dispatchers have to be trained in that. I don't know if you're familiar with it. When a call comes in and it's anything to do with a medical, we used to just transfer it down to fire, and fire used to dispatch a rescue, and that was it. Now we have to stay on the phone with that person and go through the call with them. So it could be choking, heart attack, trauma, anything else. So that maybe the chief can think of any type of medical. There are steps and procedures that dispatcher has to walk that person through until the paramedic or the rescue arrives on scene, and they can't hang up. Well, it sounds great, and it works. It's a terrific idea, and it does work, and it saves lives. However, operations continue around them. So while they're on the phone, there's still calls coming in. There's still radio calls from the offices and what have you. People walk in the lobby. So you're going down to one dispatcher as that person's processing and handling that call, but the operations around them still has. So a in theory, it works. However, you're reducing productivity around you. So we have to address that, and we have to be better at it. We've recognized the problem, and we're positively addressing it. And the idea is to combine police, fire, dispatch, to bring the police, fire together and have 3 dispatchers on duty. Where is that going to happen? We don't know. We're still assessing. Could be the police department, could be the fire department, could be another public building in the city somewhere. We're trying to do best practices and find out what's a good location where it's going to be best served. That's TBA right now. We're also at the same time engaging in discussion, and that's all it is right now, regarding regionalization of our dispatch with communities around us, police and fire. We're not committed to anything. We're just in a feasibility study. It's paid by the state. I think the fire chief and I don't want to speak for him, but if it's free, it's for me. I like to hear what they have to say. Will it work? I don't know. I like to hear what the study has to say. There's pros and cons with everything. But the study should be back around May. We'll share that with you. We'll play it by ear. But there is a good push, a huge push by the state to regionalize communications around the state, and many communities have taken the state up on that. And it's, I wouldn't say 100% funded by the state, but there is a lot of millions and millions of dollars behind us for this push of regionalization of dispatch and sharing of resources. Like I said, there's a lot of pros and cons recognized with going into a regionalization.
Chief Prof, 1985.
Was two
That's when it went to 2.
went to 2 then?
And Chief Saborin took over.
I thought there was 2 down on Wall Street. Didn't they face each other down on Wall Street after new construction? No? I remember there was a kid walking in there, and
Was that at high noon?
remember the old desk at Wall Street with the side?
Sergeant answered the phone, Lieutenant sat with him.
Is that what it was? I remember 2 guys, there was a little room, they were facing each other.
You're making me feel old, Chief. But it was, I think Chief Saborin was the one who changed it in 1985, when he made chief.
Is that when it was? So,
Because they were talking about regionalization then.
The change of the state 911 for cell phone calls.
thank you, ma'am. And another thing that's coming down, that's looming, that's going to be very interesting, how this is going to work out. Right now, your cell phone right now, if you pick up your cell phone, you dial 911, it doesn't go to the Attleboro Police Department. It goes to the state. And there's 3 call centers around the state: Middleborough, Framingham, and Springfield, one of those communities out there that handles the state. So the state police are handling all your cell phone 911 calls. Is that good or bad? Yes. The call goes up, they handle it, and they direct it to whatever city or town, and discipline that needs to be addressed in that particular incident or call or emergency. So it gets transferred down here, it comes into our 911 center, we address it, or we transfer it to fire if it's fire related. Now there's a change. Now your cell phones are going to be going to the PSAP because of the technology with GPS, with the cell phones, the triangulation with the towers. The cell phone, the software, as I understand, is going to be able to tell you where you are and direct you to your PSAP, your city or town, wherever you are. That's good because now the person answering the phone is obviously going to know where you are at that location better than somebody sitting in Framingham or Middleborough or Springfield. However, what problems does that pose? We have 95, we have Route 1 that runs through our community. You have a crash on one of those on those roadways, you're going to generate anywhere from 25, 30, 40 calls for 911 calls. Everybody has a cell phone these days, everybody. Hardly anybody has a landline. Hardly anybody's ever seen a payphone in there, you know what I mean? Or a rotary dial, or an 8-track.
Okay, that's enough.
If you go reel to reel video, they were really in trouble.
I've seen them all.
So that can overload a local PSAP, a local 911. So with all those calls coming in, and not only this community, if the 911 PSAP can't handle or answer all those calls, it gets filtered over to the next community. So ours goes to North Attleboro. So an accident on 95, even though it's in Attleboro, and this phone's gonna tell you you're in Attleboro, and it goes to Attleboro, all those calls are gonna be coming in here. We can't handle it, it goes to North Attleboro. Now, North Attleboro's minding their own business, and all of a sudden, they're getting overwhelmed, and Norton comes here. Well, Norton's got 495 that runs through their community. So there's a lot of issues involved in this that need to be addressed, that need to be sorted out. And there's one thing, though, the state wants and is pushing a lot of communities to regionalize. And like I said, there's pros and cons that we can talk about later regarding regionalization that we recognize that are good and bad. So, and when the time comes at that time to discuss it, we certainly can. We obviously keep you guys in the loop.
I think that pretty much wraps up that issue, but we just want that, those are changes that are coming. So we started those discussions. We entered into the feasibility for the regional study with both the input of the police and fire chief. They came to me with the idea. Plus, we also made the commitment, no matter what, we will still pursue without regionalization to combine anyway because of the needs as stated by the chief. So that's something that we've identified and that we're going to continue to work on throughout this fiscal year and into next fiscal year as well. But that's going to be something that will be many months worth of work for sure, either way. But that's something that we're going to continue along the lines and work on.
Mr. Church?
Mayor, would you, if you regionalize, would you consider those all being civilians and take the police and fire off the desk and put them back on duty?
That's what would end up happening because it actually becomes a separate unit underneath the state model, what they have.
Okay.
So everyone would participate in this regional unit. They would be separate entity, so to say. Everybody participate in, and there would be central supervision, oversight. There'd be a central director that would oversee and work on that, and all the chiefs would have a portion of that say as well into that regional dispatch center.
Are you talking about locally or the regional?
Either.
I think the best model and the best practice is civilian dispatches. It's such a profession now. You can no longer, for police dispatch, you can no longer take a police officer or a civilian and just say, okay, you're hired here, go to work. They won't give you your 911 password. There's 3 steps in the training process now. EMD, there's APCO, 40 hours training in basically the who, what, where, why in dispatching. And then your Vista Palace, the actual how to handle the 911 software and use it. It's become such a profession that no longer is it answering the phone and pushing the button and sending a car on the radio. The software systems that they're using, the databases, the LEAPs, the NCICs, is incredible. It's not your daddy's dispatching anymore. Like I said, it's its own profession.
The city was almost there in the 70s when they hired CETA workers. Both police and fire had them. And for some reason, the system died, but if it had continued, they would have been really professional on both departments.
I agree.
Even though it was a foreign concept, its time has come.
I agree with you, absolutely.
The time has come for that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think when Norton back in the 70s or early 80s used to close at night, the phone used to ring down at Wall Street.
Yes, they did.
So we've actually gone, we've been involved in that type of process
Yes.
before. So,
Because the calls are a lot more diminished than they are now.
yeah, certainly.
Mrs. Parika?
Just a quick follow-up. So the regionalization report will come from the state sometime in May?
Ish, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you participate in what way did you participate in that? If I just, very briefly.
The municipalities, we all got together, we talked about it, about the pros, cons, some concerns. There was questionnaires and data that we had to give to the consultants that were doing the consultant work and the feasibility study. And they interviewed the mayor, myself, the fire chief, what our concerns are and, among the other communities. And we're still giving them data. And they were looking at our radio systems. And there's a lot that goes into it, a tremendous amount of information.
There were things that we didn't think about. There were ancillary duties that dispatchers in fire and dispatchers in police that do certain tasks and certain roles other than just dispatching calls. So we had to identify that, and that varies by every single department and municipality as well. And then they had questions on governance. So things as it relates to how would this work in your municipality? Are you favorable? We're one of the only municipalities where management and police and fire actually all work together. I mean, that that it should be normal. It's just not normal in our area or even in Massachusetts. So I think that they view us a little bit different in that perspective as well. So, but they've got into those types of in-depth questions and questionnaires. We filled out the questionnaire first, and then they sat down and met with all three of us together and independently.
Excellent, thank you.
But it's a feasibility study. We're not tied or locked into anything. Like I said, it's free, it's for me, so.
I think it's fantastic that you participated in this, and it's something that has been floating around for years and years and years, and now that it would appear that we're taking steps towards. It just seems reasonable, more than reasonable.
If I could just add something on that, as long as I can talk, so bear with me. There was a study by State 911 probably 5 years ago. They were looking to do the same thing, a regional study that, I'm not sure what the reason was, but a couple of communities were not involved in it. Attleboro was one of them that wasn't involved with it. And when my concern was honestly, and if you ask my opinion personally, and I think I would share the opinion with the chief, is that we prefer it not to be regional. That shouldn't be our first objective. We should first look at a way that we maintain control. But if it ends up that regional becomes the only alternative in the future, we want to have some say in the process. So by being involved from and making our positions clear and what we think are the important things for our community, at least we can get that input into it. And what the consultant's going to do, this is a consultant, so this isn't from State 911. He's going to make multiple recommendations, so we can look at different things, and we don't really know what he's going to recommend. But one of the things to kind of clarify what one of the problems is for us in Attleboro, I'm not aware of another community that has a dispatch model that we use where we have a primary dispatch, primary PSAP, which is the police department, a secondary, which is the fire department, the way that we do it. And it worked 10 years ago, somewhat. The problem now, like the chief has said, EMD has really changed that. What happens when somebody calls 911, his dispatchers take the call and they basically tell the caller, you kind of got to stay on the line, but I'm going to transfer you to the fire department because they can't stay on the line and delay the ambulance being dispatched. So they actually tell the caller, we're going to transfer you over. We take the call. We get a little bit of information to get the trucks going. His dispatcher now gives pre-arrival instructions. So the process can be confusing at times. And we looked at other options, you know, because we're willing to work together. And one of the options we discussed is that my department would do the EMD. I have paramedics. The problem is I only have one dispatcher. And you can't do EMD with one dispatcher because that person has to stay in line with the caller. So we looked at multiple options. I don't want to give the impression that this was not something that we just said, hey, we really got to, there was a lot of thought that went into this, and there's not a lot of other options. So it's really time to look at this now and come up with the best solution.
He brings up a great point because there's many points in this handling of this call where the person gets confused and they think it's over and they hang up. Right. Only for us to get them back on the phone because we've got to EMD the call. So it gets confusing because the person's like, oh, hold on, we're going to transfer you. Hold on, the police are going to come back. Hold on, you're going to fire, you're going to get... But it's the best of the worst. Yeah. And that's why we recognize we got to fix it. And we are going to fix it. We're going to do a better job, and we're going to address it actively.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Hagney, thank you, and thank your staff for the work that they do.
I appreciate it. And I just want to add, there's something special going on in this city, and I see it with this council, with this mayor, and our department heads and the departments and the workers, that for years, Attleboro wasn't probably on a pedestal, and I see it changing, and I'm proud to be a part of it. It makes me feel good when people talk about this community the way they are, and that means a lot to me, my family who's been here for generations, but it's special because it involves all of us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Chief LaChance, welcome. I'm sorry you're not feeling well.
Thank you.
You're here on the update on implementation of the fire reorg.
Yes, I am. Actually, if I could, I had just taken a couple of notes when,
Sure.
when Chief Hagney was talking about a couple of things. I didn't want to interrupt him. But one of the things he talked about was the opiate overdose problem. I just wanted to make sure that the council understands how what the police department is doing in Attleboro impacts the fire department. We've been asked multiple times if the city of Attleboro needed to have Narcan on the police cruises. And I've spoke to the police chief, I spoke to my EMS director. Although we've had more opiate overdoses than we had when I was first on the rescues, it's not anywhere near what any other community around us is. It's not even close. So, the truth of the matter is that fixing the underlying problem, like the police department is doing, actually gives us, it solves a lot of problems for us. Those are calls that we don't have to respond to. So that's been highly effective for the fire department as well. Oh, thanks. I'm not sure if it'll help. So that's a point to keep in mind. One of the things that we've been doing with the police department is my fire prevention chief, Deputy Perkins, meets with the police department once a month. There's a name to the meeting they have. I don't recall what it is. Tom Stack. So what we do is actually we bring fire prevention issues to their command staff on a monthly basis. They were never aware of this information before. And they compile that information. The crime analyst uses some of it. But they're actually being our eyes and ears as they're patrolling to help us keep up with fire code issues and things that have, not that they would have been missed in the past, but it's just they have such a presence that it helps us with that. And that kind of ties into their problem-oriented policing. Is fire prevention in the state of Massachusetts, and in fact the country, has been so effective in helping minimize fires. It's a fallacy that fires are less. There's just as many fires in the country as there ever have been. They're just smaller because we're putting them out quicker. But there are just as many. But fire prevention has been very effective. And it's those same types of ideas when you think outside the box a little bit. Police and fire working together and kind of collaborating is something that is not seen in other communities. I meet with the fire chiefs in Bristol County every month. And I can certainly say, and I'd reiterate what the mayor had said, you don't see that everywhere. I encourage us all to take advantage of it. Hopefully it lasts forever, but you don't ever know what's going to happen as personnel change. And we have a great relationship here now, and this is a good time to take advantage of it. So anyway, as far as fire department reorganizational plan, a lot of the points that Chief Hegney had addressed about supervision, that was one of the fundamental reasons that I had come to Mayor Dumas 3 years ago now? That was a while ago. 4 years ago. Yeah, this July will be my 5th year as chief. I'll be starting, the fireworks this year will be my 6th year, so I do joke sometimes when I see people out in the street and they say, hey, are you the new fire chief? And I ask them, he was the chief for 26 years. I'm curious if I have to get to 26 years before they decide if I last as long as he does, so I'm close to it, I feel bad for the next guy, because he's not gonna have a shot in anybody remembering who he is.
Your baby now.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so a lot of those problems were what was the driving force behind the fire department reorganizational plan: supervision, unity of command staff, efficiency. And when I met with the mayor and discussed some of those problems, we tried to prioritize what the biggest problems were. And what I had prioritized was the biggest problem, at least that's how I saw it, was lack of an assistant fire chief. And also lack of officers on every piece of fire apparatus. To kind of reiterate something that the chief had said, in my tenure as chief, I don't receive very many complaints. It's just the nature of our job. It's different than police. Somebody calls 911, we show up, we get thanked almost all the time. I get cards and thanks, and people bring us gifts and food. That's just the nature, it's the benefit of what we do. But I do get a handful of complaints every so often that people weren't thrilled about the service. Not many. But I can honestly say I don't think I've ever received one when there was an officer at the scene. Now I'm not suggesting, that the firefighters are doing something even wrong, but when you have a supervisor there who understands that his job is to make us look good and to make sure that the customer gets what they want, he doesn't have to worry about all the other things, and it makes a huge, huge difference. So that was another reason that we wanted to put company officers on every truck. So the reorg, as you remember, the plan behind the reorg was to have 1 assistant fire chief, 6 district chiefs or deputy chiefs, 8 captains, and 12 lieutenants. As it stands right now, we have the chief, we have 1 assistant fire chief now. Deputy Glenn Livesey was promoted to assistant fire chief. We have 6 deputy chiefs through attrition. They will drop to district chiefs. We have now 12 captains. That will, through attrition, drop down to 8, and we have 8 acting lieutenants. We don't have any permanent lieutenants. We're awaiting the results of a civil service exam, which should be out in a couple of, probably 2 or 3 more weeks. We'll have those results. So we do have The majority, about 50% of the reorg has been implemented. We also have added a fire inspector under the direction of the EMS, of the fire prevention chief. So, as I mentioned, Deputy Dennis Perkins is the fire prevention chief. We now have an extra inspector. That's one of the positions that's been sorely needed for a long time. We're currently doing, on pace, probably do 3,000 inspections this year. So we used to do about 100 to 150 a month, various types of inspections. That's at least doubled. And some of those inspections that we've been able to do were high-risk facilities that we didn't typically get to inspect regularly because of a lack of staffing. We didn't have the manpower to do it. Some of them are industrial complexes. Just the last several months, we've identified pretty major life safety conditions in some industrial complexes. Sprinkler systems completely shut off, and those have all been abated over a period of a couple of months. So again, the model is with fire prevention, anytime you can prevent an emergency, it's the best action for everybody. So we've been very effective with all of that. We currently have, like I said, the 8 acting lieutenants. So now every piece of fire apparatus has 2 firefighters and an officer on it. That's also new for us. One of the benefits of that is accountability for the firefighters' safety. That's probably the biggest benefit. Some of these things are hard to, put they're hard to quantify. It's hard to actually, I can't put a number on it. It's hard to say is it effective or not, but I can give you an example. Just on January 1st, we had a fire at a carpet recycling plant in the old Techno-Apex complex. I was out of town. I was in Pembroke, and we received a call. Somebody in the neighborhood said there was black smoke in the area. A lot of times that's black smoke from a smokestack. That's what you always hope. And they sent crews out, and the first truck that got there, they saw heavy black smoke. They were looking to see if it was from a stack. And then we received the master box, which in that facility there's no fire alarm system. It's sprinkler systems tied to the fire alarm system. So that tells us more than likely that a sprinkler system has now discharged, which you combine that with black smoke, you're pretty certain there's a fire. We have very experienced, aggressive, I mean that in a good way, structural interior firefighting department. We're an interior firefighting department. I'm sure you would recognize that as well. It's one of the things that sets us apart. We have the staffing to actually go into the building to put the fires out before they get bad. This particular building, because I was on the phone with the deputy when it was evolving, he made it pretty clear to me that there was a little bit of a pucker factor. These are experienced people that are going into a building with heavy black smoke, fire alarm sounding, and when they made entry into the building, even with the sprinkler system discharged, it was probably 200 to 300 degrees at the door and black. They can't see anywhere. Big buildings, scary. The fire was essentially contained to the carpet material. It's cubes of recycled material, a little bit of heat damage to the surroundings. But you had no way of knowing that when they were engaged in the interior firefighting. At the end of the fire, as the crews come out, one of the things that's different now that we didn't have before is all of the personnel were grouped with their officers. In the past, we had trucks without an officer, so you have people, I don't want to say wandering, that's not the case, but you have 2 firefighters come off a truck, they don't have an officer. Who do they report to? So they go to the deputy. 2 firefighters on the engine with no officer. Who do they go to? They go to the deputy. Well, the deputy who's running the incident has a lot of other things that he's managing. It's just too much. And without exception, everybody that was at that fire really understood the value and the benefit of having an officer on every truck. So that's, to put it in perspective, that's a catastrophic building. That's the type of thing, even with a sprinkler system, people get lost, they run out of air, they would be overcome by heat and smoke, and we could have had a tragedy. One of the other points that I think kind of shows the value of the reorg, because this is another one of those things I've talked about a little bit earlier that it ties into something that Chief Heggie said about what do we expect for the city of Attleboro. I know what the mayor expects for the city of Attleboro. I know what I expect for the fire department. It was something I said when I first became chief, and I meant it sincerely, is that what I want for the fire department is I want it to be the best fire department around. Anything less than that, I'll just keep working at that until I retire. It's not saying anything bad about the department, but that's my goal. And I received a phone call last week from a fire chief, a local chief, I won't say what department, I don't think it would be fair, but his nephew is in paramedic school right now, and I don't even know if you know this yet, Mayor, I don't think I mentioned it to you. He's in paramedic school. He's looking to get into the fire service. Now, this chief in the local department said to his nephew, call Chief LaChance in Attleboro. Attleboro is the place you want to be if you want to be a firefighter. So there is some progress. People are starting to see some things that are encouraging. Like the chief had said earlier, we have a young department, which has a lot of, there's some good things about it, but, you know, we have a lot of inexperienced officers. You know, I'm still a new chief. But with all of that, the employees are different today. When I got the job, I was just happy to have the job. I just was, you know. He interviewed me, I didn't ask him one question. When do I start? That's all I wanted to know. I have the job, I'm coming. It's not like that today. And as a manager, we need to understand that. We need to be competitive in the marketplace. We need to sell the product that's the Attleboro Fire Department. And that's not just money, there's lots of things, but things like the reorg and accountability and command staff and all of these things tied together make a better department. And I believe it ties into the plan that you have for the city, that this honorable body has for the city. And if we continue to do that, I think we're going to continue to see great things. Just a couple of points just to consider to kind of put into perspective what we do every day. We do, we'll be close to 7,000 calls this year. Our calls are not like the police calls, they last about an hour. You know, and that can be anywhere from 2 to 5 personnel at a minimum. So we don't have the volume, but our calls are different. 4,500 medical calls. So, and that's transports now, well, 4,000 transports. So the ambulance service is just busier and busier all the time. That's going to continue to be busy. It's a great service that we provide. If you are familiar, if you live in a community where that's not provided by the fire department, you can see, it would be my opinion that the community is not providing the best service. I mean, that the city's not providing the best community service for the community. In Attleboro, I think the residents get in addition to a bargain, I think they're getting a high-level product from the service that the fire department provides.
Chief, I had a question regarding you have ALS on all your fire apparatus. Has that been, was that a good, how was that as a decision?
Do you mean ALS personnel or equipment?
We put all the life-saving equipment on all the fire trucks.
No, it's only one engine is the ALS engine.
Okay.
And then we have all the ambulances. All the ambulances are ALS, yes.
Right.
Actually, in the future, we're looking at some options. Engine 4 is licensed as an ambulance. There's a lot of expense in that, and it has to have all of the equipment that an ambulance has. There are other options. They call it emergency first response vehicle. There's ways we can get other engines, not licensed, that's not the correct word, but certified that we can put ALS equipment on it if we have personnel available. This, not every day. We don't have an ALS person on every engine every day. Certainly 10 years from now we'll be at that point. One of the concerns that you run into is quality control. If you have too many ALS providers, they're not as skilled, and I don't mean that as an insult. It's just, you know, when I was a paramedic, when you're very busy, personally, as a paramedic, you become highly skilled, and you can provide a very good service. Certainly, we don't want the people to get burnt out, but if you water it down too much, you know, you don't want 100 paramedics because they won't have enough calls to become highly proficient. So it's a balancing act of having just the right amount. I think that right now we probably have about 40 to 45 paramedics if you count officers that are also paramedics that don't work on the ambulance. And you would see that we haven't had an issue since I've been chief, but I'm sure it predates that, probably even 10 years before, but we haven't had an issue getting ALS to a call that I can recall in my career. And now we get 2 paramedics to pretty much every call, as new mandates require us to do that, and there's been no issues with that as well.
No, and wasn't saying about an issue, but I was thinking that because we've included the life-saving equipment at Briggs Corner,
Yes.
Has that been a benefit to Briggs?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it's been a benefit. One of the first calls that they did when it was first placed in service was at Ponce and Hewitt. And there was a young boy broke his wrist. It was called a Colles fracture. When you show up, it looks like this. It's classic. You can tell the type of fracture. He was probably 5 or 6 years old in exceeding pain. And Engine 4 showed up, ALS engine, carrying all the equipment. And they were able to, on the field, while we were waiting for an ambulance to come, you know, give the kids an IV, morphine for pain, do all of these things. So he was completely calm, splintered by the time the ambulance showed up. And I received a letter from that family. They weren't from Attleboro. They were visiting for a baseball game with their kids, and they were blown away. You know, we're very fortunate. I have a lot of, and I'd say 99% of the personnel in the fire department are great. You know, and they all work hard, and they're all always looking to do more. I had a captain just yesterday ask me about the possibility of putting additional ALS equipment on engines. Just because they're certified at that level, and if there's a chance that somebody needs their help, they want to be able to provide that service. So, you know, these are conversations that we couldn't have had 10 years ago because we didn't have the type of personnel to do that, and we're always looking to improve the service. It's the same thing we did with the bike team. You know, we used the bike team at the 100th celebration, and they were busy, you know, and honestly, if they get used 2 or 3 times a year for something like that, and they make a difference. Was it you?
You have a question?
Just very briefly, I'm happy to hear that other surrounding communities are referring people to you for staffing now. Since the reorganization, has that, I know we've had difficulty retaining people who come in, train, move on.
I haven't
Have we had any?
I haven't had any requests to leave since the reorg has been implemented. Now, the test will be, I'll be honest, we hired 7 back in June. They have finished in the fire academy. They graduate tomorrow. You know, I mean, there's other factors. They're not all local. There's multiple things to consider. But part of this, I don't think you ever get rid of it 100%. And you know, it happened when he was the chief. It happened. There were some people that, you know, looked to jump ship. But it's less. You can feel in the fire department. There's a strong feeling of. I guess the word is appreciation. They feel appreciated. They feel valued. You know, I mean, they know they make a difference with the community, but they're starting to feel again now a sense of appreciation from the city. You know, and that goes a long way, I think.
And that was part of the goal, I think.
Towards the goal, right? It is part of the goal.
Reorganization
And it's you know, if you look at any successful business, I mean, private sector is a little bit easier. If I was a manager of a private company, there'd be things I could do that I'd get arrested for doing as a fire chief. But you look at some of the companies like Google, and you know, they look at doing things to improve the work environment and to make the company, you know, a place where people want to go work. Those are the types of things we're doing. We're doing now with training. We got that building, the Hoff and Kettle. We still have it for training. We're still using it. The 3 new firefighters we just put on 2 weeks ago spent the better part of a week at that building, cutting it up and doing all kinds of things. So those things go a long way. And you know, when those opportunities present themselves, we take advantage of them.
Mr. Conti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, you now have 1.5 full-time fire inspectors, and you've doubled your inspections.
I have 2 full-time inspectors.
You have 2 full-time inspectors?
Yes, the fire prevention chief, and then 1 inspector.
And you've doubled your inspections. When do you think, how far are you away from a complete audit of all the properties in Attleboro?
All businesses, well, in another 6 months, we'll probably...
All the properties that you would typically inspect?
Inspect. I say another 6 months, we'll probably be close to hitting them all. The problems are not all as easy to identify as you think, because they're, you know, one address can have multiple businesses. It's not as easy as knowing, you know, certainly what businesses are there, but they're doing a systematic procedure where they're going through different areas of the city. And
I'm sure this process has led to a lot of discovery.
Absolutely.
Things that you were not aware of before.
Absolutely.
That you are now aware of, that has improved the safety of the staff should there be an event.
Absolutely. There's a couple of huge ones, and I won't say the name of the business because it's not fair, but there were a couple that, and Mr. Churchill would probably know the facility just by the comments I'd be making, but they were notorious for not allowing us to inspect. Now, the law is pretty clear that we have the inherent right to go inspect, but then you get a line, you know, just because I have the right to go into a property without being deemed trespassing, that's not a line that you typically cross by just forcing yourself in. So you do things like administrative warrants, but those things take time. And when you only have a certain amount of time and you have a certain amount of resources, you have a pile of, these are bad, these are really bad, I have the time, let me go take care of these. So you're right, Counselor, we've been able to get into some of these facilities and find significant problems and work cooperatively with them to get them fixed, because that's the ultimate goal. We're not looking to close businesses. Our goal is to get the place safer so that the community around them is safer, the other businesses and residents, and ultimately the firefighters.
So I would assume that the majority of your activity has been concentrating on the 1,500 commercial accounts that we have in the city, but I would imagine that you would also be having interest in some residential properties that may be suspect.
Well, it depends on the type of residential. Certain things like, group homes,
And multifamilies.
daycares, multifamilies, unless we're asked to go, we don't really have jurisdiction for less than 3 units.
Unless you're called in for a smoke inspection.
Yep, or if we go there on a medical call, or if somebody is there and they observe something and it's reported through the channels, well, then yes, we get involved. So we definitely, we actually, with a poor economy, we actually do get involved with some multifamily homes, and our fire prevention division has found things like houses with no heat and people with kids living in a house, sad stories, and them doing things with candles and other heating units they shouldn't be doing. But one of the things that we stress is, we certainly don't want to be the agency to throw somebody out of the house. So we take a proactive step to see what can we do to get them so that they can stay. And we've been very effective with, I'd say dozens of cases on a residential basis. Just
So in 6 months, or say a year, you should have a complete database of all the properties that you have an interest in.
Yes.
As well as a file, if you will, of the layout of that property and of course the material stored in the property.
Yes.
That's very good.
In every facility that we inspect by law, we're required to keep those records for life by address. So even if the business changes, we keep those records by address. So some of that's a little problematic, because if somebody says, Joe's Automotive, unless we know where Joe's Automotive is, it's hard to find those records. So we're working on systems to cross-reference that too. So.
And have you also been auditing vacant properties?
Yes. Yep. I mean, the building department's been very good at giving us that information. Since we have, the extra inspectors really allowed us to do those audits for, like you said, vacant properties, or any potential, what would be called possible fire code violations. If we receive a call or a complaint from the building department or somebody in the police department, to be honest, those weren't things that we could always address. But now with the extra inspector, we're on 100%.
So at the time when you have completed your audit and you have done a full inspection of what you need to inspect, will you continue to require 2 full-time inspectors?
Honestly, the city should have 3 or 4. As an example, the city of Fall River has 7. Mansfield has 3, because we have to inspect them every year. So inspecting them one time is of no value. We now have to go back next year and make sure that they're doing all of the things that we're saying they have to do. So the truth is, it's, I'm hopeful that 2 will be enough long-term, but I couldn't say with 100% honesty that in 2 years, 3 years, that we won't have to have a conversation and say we can't keep up with, because like you said, discovery sometimes, you don't know what you're going to find until you actually find it.
Mr. Cook was next, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Chief, as you inspecting these properties, as a follow-up to Mr. Condon's question, are you updating any of your pre-planning for an incident of that as you go along? And has this, as a result of the inspection so far, have you had to make any major changes in your previous understanding of the building, or how you're going to be pre-planning in case of an incident?
Yeah, one of the things we're trying to do, we've been doing pre-planning, for 100 years. The problem is that if the information isn't in a format that the guys in the trucks can use it, it doesn't help an awful lot. If it's in the fire prevention building, it's not particularly helpful. One of the things that we're in the process and we're still working on was a joint public safety project GeoCommand that we had put in a budget for both the police and the fire department. It's a public safety GIS database designed specifically for us.
Right.
That's one of the next steps that we're going to do. So when they're doing these inspections, they're gathering the information right now. As they gather that information, we're starting a process to put it into this system. It's a slow process. It takes a certain period of time. And after we start to get it in there, the next step is now going to have to be on tablets to get this information in the trucks, in a mobile situation so that they can use it in the field. Right now, it's only in dispatch, so that the dispatcher can pull that information up, and whatever we have in the system, he can tell the responding companies.
Okay, thank you.
And Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, if I can go back to, with 45 paramedics, Mayor, are we still a consent decree community with a waiver to get paramedics? Or I know that one of the problems with hiring, you get a list of unemployed. But when we were a consent decree community, it was only residents. To get over that, we had to get a paramedic waiver. How are we operating now?
I can answer that. At least according to the person I've contacted at Civil Service, name is Nwanda, if the city or as a chief, we can continue to hire paramedics indefinitely if we can't have 100 working on ambulances. Civil Service won't allow us to hire paramedics if that's the case. What we do is similar to what you had done, Chief, is that at some point when people get to a certain point in their career, they're given an opportunity to not be assigned directly to the ambulance. So I'm looking at a number of 36 paramedics, which would be 9 per shift. Once we're at that number, and Civil Service had given us the go-ahead to continue to hire paramedics, even if we go over the 36. As I explained to them, I have 7 at the Fire Academy. So we can go over that number with the understanding that the objective is to have it at 36.
So nothing's changed then, really?
No, it hasn't changed.
Because that's what I did too, I allowed. Can I answer Mr. Cook's question and get back to the multiple dispatch? Even though all that stuff is in the computer, and it really needs to be in the computer, as the chief said, unless you have multiple dispatches, that one guy won't be able to disseminate that information to the truck crews.
Right.
He's going to be too busy. So part of the learning process is, like he says, being in the building, but having enough people who can pass out that information.
Right.
One guy can't do all that.
Right. Yeah, if I may.
Or if they can bring it up electronically, but go ahead.
Yeah, if I, the fire that you had mentioned back in late December, I was listening to that on my chair the whole time. And some of that information that you had mentioned, and that you had mentioned also was being transmitted, verbally, which is the type of thing that eventually get to the point of having it online. But I thought it was interesting to hear, and they were pointing out different aspects and different things. I found it was quite interesting to be hearing the reports from people inside operating, and then, the coordination and cooperation, not cooperation, but the coordination between it was really, and the dissemination of the information. I was very glad to actually, be hearing that and see what's going on. So it was right. You're very, in terms of just being able to get this about there to the guys in there. So, thank you.
Thank you. How are we doing, Chief?
I'm good.
You're good?
I'm
I
good.
want to thank you and your staff. I'm very excited by the report that you're giving us on the reorganization. Keep it going, and I look forward to future updates. And again, thank you, staff, for all they do for the
I
safety of
will,
the city.
and I make it a point to let them know that without the support of the council and the rest of the city, that we wouldn't be able to do the job that we do.
Appreciate that. Ms. Hegney has a question?
I was just gonna say that it's great to hear all these things, and I know someone else has said before that if you don't have the support of a mayor and the council, that these things could have been done, but we're doing them now, to have the support of the council and an administration that sees the importance of everything that you're doing, that I hope we can continue to keep everything going.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Chief. I hope you're feeling better.
Me too, thank you.
He's going to stay for one more issue.
Okay.
I was just going to move something up on the agenda. Do you want to just
All right.
read it up just a time? Mr. Barry can come around the corner. This is the issue on the Swank property because this does involve the fire department. You see that you have the property timeline. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Cass in just a second. But the issue why we are talking about Swank, it has an issue of liability. It was very well intentioned of how this project started off with the redevelopment authority a long time ago. Barry will get into that, but leading up to where we are current day, we ended up having an issue where some rules and regulations had changed with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that dictated indoor air quality, which led to the problem that the people had to be taken out of that facility. even though the ARA had been doing environmental cleanup on the property, which is in the ground of what they had been working on since 2006, 2007. They had a $500,000 grant from Mass Development to do injections of chemicals into the ground to actually clean that property. That was successful, but the problem of indoor air quality and the indoor air samples continued to be an issue. The state changed the definitions of what they deemed as acceptable for indoor air quality levels, and then going into further examination and detailing that the issues that are involved in that building, the contaminants are in the floor, they're in the pipes, they're in the ventilation systems, it's in the metal. That building cannot be rehabilitated. So therefore, that building needs to come down. So the ARA did the first responsible thing with available funds that they had, which was to hire Axiom. Axiom was the company that they had hired in the past to do all the environmental remediation information that for the automatic machines property, north and south buildings, before they demoed those buildings, they contracted with them for almost $20,000 to be able to come up with the remediation necessities for the building. They did that plan, and it also includes them to do the bid work for the remediation activity. However, in the meantime, before the building came down, there were a number of issues that came up as it relates to the building in the meantime, of why the heating system can't be shut down, why the utilities cannot be shut off, and during that time, the ARA has been paying all of those utility bills. Also, not only the partnership of working with the city and what we've been working with the ARA and with the fire department and with the police department and the building protective inspection department, we have a very unique relationship. Leach Gardner, the new company, the Berkshire Hathaway company, not the former Leach and Gardner, the new company, has been a very responsible partner. That's why partnerships are really important that we build in the community. They continue to be able to have the security. They're actually running the boiler for us. There is no thermostat. It has to be manually turned on and manually fired down. They are doing all of that for us. Otherwise, we would be having to hire staff to go in and do that every single day in order to keep the building at the proper temperature so the pipes don't freeze and so the sprinkler system doesn't freeze, and that it's actually not cost benefit wise productive to change over to a dry system, which the chief can get into all the analysis that he did. We need to keep this building up and running operationally up until the time where we can actually get this building torn down. We need to do that as soon as possible, because every day that it's out there is a liability, but with the understanding that we're going to get this building down as soon as we can, that liability shrinks every single day. So I just want to turn it over right now to Barry first to talk about the timeline of what we're dealing with and where we're going with that, and then turn it over to the work that the chief's done to understand what that liability is and why it's so important that we continue to operate the facility as we're currently doing now. Okay?
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. I know the timeline is multi-pages, but there's just a few highlights I want to bring to your attention. It was very interesting as I prepared this because it reminded me of what has happened in the past. It's quite a unique story. We begin really with 2000 when the Swank company announced had to send notice to the mayor that they were basically shutting down. So that created an opportunity for redevelopment, which is when the redevelopment authority put it into their plan, their urban renewal plan. And it wasn't until 2006 that Swank actually transferred title to the 4 parcels to the ARA, which is another unique thing, because usually you have a purchase and sale agreement and you say title will transfer at some point in the future. They had a purchase and sale agreement, but title transferred immediately. So the ARA owned the property. And I think one of the reasons why the ARA did it that way is because the ARA would then have access to grants for cleanup that the responsible party would not. So in any event, the next significant event, as the mayor indicated, I think happened in June of 2013. Remember, the Swank building was operational. It was sort of rehabbed. It was had employees in it. Life was going on, and everybody was happy. It wasn't until June of 2013 that it was discovered that the air quality inside this building was poor. And originally, the belief was that air quality was coming up from the ground.
But as the ground began to be cleaned, the air quality in the building existed still. So then the study went into, well, what's causing this? And as the mayor mentioned, it's the timbers, it's the metal, it's the asbestos, it's a lot of things inside that frankly meant that the air quality was so bad and it exceeded DEP's thresholds that the employees could no longer work there. So the employees were moved out. And it was the recommendation of the ARA's consultant, Doug Healy, and DEP that this property cannot be remediated. It has to, the hazardous materials has to be taken out and the building has to be torn down. That was a major turning event because that put on its head exactly what I think this council and prior councils had in mind in their urban renewal plan, which is to rehab this building into a functional development. That's simply not going to happen in June of 13 when that air quality was discovered. So that obviously set in motion the task that we're sort of updating you on tonight, which is how do we tear down this building? ARA owns title. They don't have a lot of money. The chief is going to talk about what happens if this building remains as it is without a sprinkler system because the pipes are frozen, what kind of risk that creates. So we're here to, and the mayor's communication is asking for funds to begin that process of not only remediating the existing building, but ultimately tearing it down. The first step is to get the bid documents for the remediation and the demolition out on the street. Once, well, obviously, once we get the bids back, we'll deal with that issue later. But during these colder months, we do run the risk of that sprinkler system and the fire suppression systems freezing. And if that building goes up, as the chief will attest to, that's very, very bad. So that's why we wanted to send down that the Axiom quote and the other request for funds just as soon as possible. So that's sort of an overview of the history of the Swank. I gave you a diagram showing where the different properties are. Parcel 1 on that sketch is the actual Swank building. The other parcels are primarily parking lots. So I'll turn it over to the chief now to talk about some of the hazards of keeping that building as it is.
No, thank you. When I was first made aware of the problems with the Swank building, and I took a site visit, a couple of things became readily apparent. That in the fire code there is a mechanism to disconnect or discontinue a fire protection system. It can only be done with the permission of the authority having jurisdiction, so that's the fire chief. It's not the building department. In order to discontinue it, the only person that can authorize that is me. There are certain times that we've done it. There are times I would be comfortable with it in certain situations. But whenever you do that, there have to be other precautions put in place. So this building has some unique challenges. First, a fire in this building, we can't control. Absolutely, even with a sprinkler, we're going to have a hard time. But a fire in this building, honestly, is catastrophic for that whole east side. And that's not an overstatement. That's a mill gets going, there's not enough water and people to put it out. And that's not so bad for that building, but the problem is all of the exposures, there's houses close by. So that would be a huge problem. Now, there are other things we can do. There are ways to drain a sprinkler system or make it dry. I'll talk first about just draining it. You can drain a sprinkler system completely so you don't have to worry about anything freezing. You can shut it off. In order to allow that to happen, the system has to be tested because we have to make sure that if there's a fire in the facility that we can turn the sprinkler system back on and have a reasonable expectation that it's going to do something. The cost for that work to drain it and to inspect it and do all of that stuff for a building that size, what were the numbers that give me, $15,000, $30,000? It's a significant amount of money. And as I explained to the mayor and the ARA, that if I were to authorize that sprinkler system to be shut down, if that building's still standing when the warm weather comes around, they're going to put the sprinkler system back on, which is another expense. So normally when we deal with a vacant building and somebody wants to terminate the fire protection, it's one of two reasons. It's nobody owns it anymore and it's privately owned and they're just walking away from it. Mm-hmm. This isn't privately owned. This is directly or indirectly. It's our problem. So that's one of the issues. The second problem is that you'd have to button up the building completely, make it completely secure so nobody could get in. And there's just a whole bunch of issues surrounding that that are not, you have to terminate all the utilities, the electricity, the gas, all of that. And still what you have is a structure, although you've reduced most of the ignition sources, so the likelihood of a fire starting from, accidental means is slim, there's still a risk of fire. A car in the parking lot catches on fire, gets that building going, and there's no protection at all, we can't control it. Kids getting in, arson, there's a whole bunch of those things. So the risk is just too high where that building is. If it were an industrial park with nothing around it, different story, because the risk would just be that building. So it's basically in the worst place it could be. And what makes it even worse is typically a building that's looking to shut off the fire sprinkler system is going to come down. They're going to knock the building down. Has the other thing. If the mayor could say the building's coming down next month, okay, you deal with what you have. But the problem with this is with the contamination, hazardous materials, and all the abatement that has to happen, and the cost to remediate it and then demolish it. Best case, you could be looking at months and months and months. So the risk of having this abandoned structure stand there, every day that it continues to stand, the risk gets greater and greater. We looked at options about putting early warning systems in, because one of the other problems, if you terminate all the sprinkler system in that building, there's virtually no smoke detectors. There's a couple in the hallways, they won't work below freezing, so there's no early warning. So even if there were a fire inside, the only way we would get notified is if the sprinkler system discharges. If you shut that off, we're not going to get notified. So to put an early warning system in, we looked at the most cost-effective method, which was less than optimal, was a beam detection system, because it could work in below freezing temperatures, and even that was
$22,000.
$22,000. That was without an electrician doing other, so, and they're probably $25,000, $30,000. Everything we put together, by the time it was all done, $50,000, $75,000.
It's almost $100,000.
If nothing else went wrong.
Yes.
Okay, so now, it's my opinion that as long as that building's gonna come down, the best course of action for right now is to maintain the heat. As much as I know it's a waste of money, but I think it's the best option from a public safety standpoint, is to maintain the heat enough to keep the sprinkler system from freezing until we get past the cold weather, to shut the heat and figure out the way to get it down in a timely manner. That's it in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but it's a no-win situation.
Chief?
Just to support you, Chief, when Texas Instruments before BCC went in, besides making them put a firewall up, I made them keep the heat, and that building didn't belong to the city.
Right.
And the other thing that I'm sure you're aware of, you didn't mention, but the biggest risk if that building goes is the guys are gonna go in the building.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So I don't think you have a choice.
No,
I don't think you have a choice.
no.
I agree with you.
It's not a great choice, but I agree with you.
No, you don't have a choice.
It's not an option.
The difficulty with this as well as the hospital is less than 800 feet
Yeah.
away, and the types of contaminants that are in the building, if this was from an ignition source and it did ignite, is the fact that, as the chief said, is the whole east side now that is fully contaminated with asbestos fibers and all of these
Yeah.
volatile organic compounds that are now airborne. If a fire gets hot enough, the mercury, there's a multitude of issues. I do want the council to know that we also, at the same time that the chief was doing all of this investigation with all of these companies, getting all of the quotes for all of these things, before we made the determination to say it's more cost effective to stay status quo until the building comes down, that we've been working with the federal EPA, and we've been working with DEP from the Brownfield support team and trying to work on this issue. They may be able to provide some emergency response funds from EPA for certain sectors of mercury switches, heavy metals that are in the dust collection system. There may be those types of issues that they could help remediate. We have submitted an application for $1.5 million that is going to be looked very favorably upon from Mass Development. Mass Development is involved with this project. Again, they're with our Brownfield support team, but also because of the fact of the partnership next door with Leach Gardner. Leach Gardner wants this property in the end, so they will be participating to some amount. They want the Swank lot as a paved lot to be turned over to them when we're completely finished, in order for them in the future to expand in their current facility, which will absorb the rest of their parking on the right-hand side of the building if you're looking at the front door. So we've engaged them. As I said, we're very fortunate. We have a partner in this. And they have a partner because their long-term vision is to still stay present in Attleboro and to expand. And they will be participating to some level. We will continue those discussions. I've been working with Bob Mangiarotti with them. And they have continued to be a partner in keeping up everything that they're doing for us. And the ARA has to reimburse them through their Treasury Department for those costs of the utilities. The only thing that the ARA has been paying directly at this point, specifically the Axiom, the $20,000 report, and the fuel delivery that we had to schedule for number 6 heating oil. That's another thing. It's not a regular home heating oil. It's number 6. It's very thick. So the gas bill in the building is used to heat and stir the oil to make sure that it continues on. But it is a monster of a boiler, and they graciously 7 days a week are doing this for us in order to keep that building the way it is currently. Working with it, the chief has also found some other things that I won't say because we're on public television, but just to give caution to everyone, there are things that have happened inside that building that lead one to be very cautious and very concerned. So that kind of heightened our level where the chief actually traveled in with DEP with us to Boston to really try to get an emergency response from EPA to say, we need to move this process along as quickly as possible because there have been threats of liability against the property, and that's something that's not only a liability for us, it's a liability to the neighborhood, to the residents, to the surrounding businesses, but also to Sturdy. So that's something that we're feverishly working on, and we've been feverishly working on this for the past 3 weeks. So,
Chief, I'll...
Mayor, so the 50,000 plus gallons is, who's regulating the heat? The people who are keeping the boiler running?
Yes.
Is there a temperature that you've decided on?
They don't, there's no
lower.
thermos, there's no thermos.
Nothing.
It's just, it's run by a fireman, so they basically go in there, you know, the old boiler fireman, he goes in there, he turns it, gets it going, runs it up, lets it run for a few hours, comes in later, walks around, if he thinks it's warm enough, he turns it down. There's no way to zone it. I mean, it's the most inefficient heating system.
There's a switch, there's a low and there's a high.
Yeah.
And at the low switch is 502 gallons a day when it's really cold.
Just answer my question. So you have no idea if it's going to be 502 or 600 gallons a day. This is an aggregate guess.
And so we took
It's about
their estimate.
$1,500 a week, about 1,500 gallons a week.
Okay, and that's been the aggregate so far?
Yes.
All right.
The warmer the weather will use less, but we took from Leach Gardner, we took their estimates and tried to be conservative to be able to continue on. So we're hopeful that we won't be over that amount, but we went from where we are today and where we need to project ourselves through the end of April. Trying to be as conservative as we can for that. The utilities that we estimated are through the month of May. So
Sir,
the gas.
bids all being equal, we're hoping this building is being addressed before next winter.
Oh, absolutely. I need to get this building down as quickly as possible. So I'm looking to get a hopefully on a board agenda for mass development for the month of February. If not, worst case scenario will be on the board agenda for March. And then in the meantime, the ARA has authorized me to go out to bid for these services. So as soon as we can get the money to create the bid for the demo, as I said, Axiom already is responsible for preparing the remediation portion, the $6,000 that Mr. Lacasse referenced for the actual demo bid preparation. We want to put that out in the street so we know our liability sooner than later. We're going to put those two pieces out together, just so the same type of bargain, hopefully, whatever we consider a bargain, I guess, that we did for the Falmouth Street. The Falmouth Street site came in less because the same person that is doing the remediation is going to be doing the demo. We want to provide that opportunity for this project to do them both together, and hopeful that the same person for the best bargain dollar we can get to be able to have that dollar amount as low as possible. So we're trying to do everything in conjunction to get everything out on the street as quickly as we can, with filing for the grant, with working with Leach Gardner, and working with EPA and DEP. So continue working with the police department, the fire department, and protective inspection.
So the main concern, sir, is the remediation is the big issue first. Once you start taking the building down, the danger to the community, even if there is a fire, has been lessened.
Correct.
So the remediation, can you put that in the bid?
Yes.
Can you, what I'm saying, but can you have a timeline? I know it's unreasonable to say you got to do it a certain amount of time, but
No, you can, I mean, obviously, the closer the time frame, the more the bid's gonna be. If you
Okay.
say you must have this thing down in 2 weeks, it's gonna increase the bid.
and any unforeseen remediation will have to be addressed at the time that they find it, which they probably will.
Well, the scope of work from Axiom is going to highlight, because they did a complete audit, it's going to highlight all the known hazardous materials in that facility. So anyone bidding on it is going to understand what they're dealing with.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
It's actually just going to lead to, further on to Mr. Churchill's point, it's going to lead to actually deconstructing the building because it's in the floorboards. I mean, as they're taking this out, they're going to have to put a demo plan together with the chief because literally it's going to be deconstructing the building as they're doing the remediation.
Which way handle the sprinkler system?
Oh, absolutely, so they'd definitely be
So
working with.
that's why it's the most important thing. Once they do that, the sprinkler system isn't as relevant.
Right.
But it's still important.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the issues, one of the things that people would say is that, well, if they're gonna knock the building down and you get a call, even if a fire alarm were in the building, we received a fire alarm or a water flow, we thought there was a fire, it's not like we're not gonna go inside that building. We won't go in that building if if the trucks pull up and there's flames coming out of every single window, but if you pull up and you don't have anything showing, you have to go inside. You can't just wait outside until you see flames come out. So it's never a case that nobody ever goes in. So that's part of the strategy or the difficulty for us is that, like the mayor had said, well, they're going to remove floorboards. We need to be on top of everything that they're going to be doing. If they remove floorboards, then I have to have SOPs in place so when guys go in that building, if they go, even for just an alarm activation, they stay in the stairwells and they look, but when utilities are killed and there's no electricity, they can't see at night. So there's a host of things that a demo company will have to work with us to kind of coordinate the process. So it's a little bit more complicated than just hitting it with a wrecking ball.
So literally through the holidays, the ARA got their emergency delivery of oil. They got that in place. The chief has been working with the redevelopment authority at all of their meetings and with us and with Doug Semple. We're trying to go through to put together all the necessary plans, but we tried to take it from every discipline approach comprehensively to just, in the end, get it down, sustain it is the cheapest way through the point till we get the building down.
I think you've explained it extraordinarily well. I was concerned about the neighbors and the hazardous if there was a fire, and yeah, you brought that out rather quickly. I think it's important for us to move this along to keep that place heated. And you said that you'd like it as soon as possible.
Yes.
We had everybody here. There's not anybody on this council anymore, other than Mr. Dudley, because he's East Side Council, any more concerned with those East Side population than I am. I would urge my fellow councilor, Mr. Conti, to move this as fast as possible so we can make sure that stays heated. And whatever we can do to help, I think, Richard, we should do. It's definitely a safety factor for that neighborhood and the hospital. I never even thought of that, but
MS Company,
We don't want that
Marathon
frozen.
Company,
Yeah.
Leach Gardner. I mean,
Yeah.
in addition to all the residents,
yeah.
literally you've got
Gardner Terrace, the list
You've
just
got,
goes on.
it's just, it's everybody, well, it's us too. I mean, we're right in the mix as well,
I would
so.
hate to have this stall myself personally, and I don't think it'd be responsible of this council to stall it any longer than possible to get that put through so we can be assured that we keep it heated. Appropriation go forward.
Have my radio off, you made me shut it.
So, hey, thank you for letting me.
Thank you. Ms. Parika, then Mr. Conti.
If I may just ask, what's the current level net? Like, what do we have in stock right now? How far can we go? In the event that he can't bring this in front of his committee in the time frame that Councilor Blair would like it done, what do we have going on?
I probably have like another week of oil left.
I think that helps facilitate a decision on that. So, thank you.
Mr. Conti?
So my question is, where do we get the money to buy the oil that's in the building?
The ARA already bought the oil. They just had their last shipment right before New Year's. Is when they ended up getting their shipment and the delivery from W.H. Riley for the number 6 oil. So they ended up
So
getting,
the ARA is currently paying for the oil.
and they don't have money for another delivery. So they've expended all of their funds for the $20,000 for the remediation plan from Axiom. They put that up. They put $12,000 up for fuel. They put that up, so now they don't have any more money left. and they know that they're going to be responsible still for the bills that they have to reimburse Leach Gardner for November and December for the utilities, water, sewer, natural gas, and the electric, and the alarm system. So they know that they have those things to reimburse for November and December, and they also have from January through May, because we're trying to get the building down by May, to be realistic.
So if we fund it, will we be directly paying for the fuel, or will we be loaning the money to the ARA, or will we be giving the money to the ARA?
This
What is the
money is
arrangement?
going into the intergovernmental ARA account, which is in general government and citywide, and so they would end up drawing upon the money, and they would draw, and the money would be cut over to the ARA, so the ARA could pay the specific bills. So we're not paying the bills, because they're not our bills, they're the ARA bills, so the ARA would do a draw in advance of needing the check to be able to make the monthly utility payments and to pay the fuel bill.
So,
I can't just cut a check over to them, and it's unlike the urban renewal bond, where they do have some funds that they can upfront things. We can't do that as a direct source of money for the city. So we have to put it into, as the auditor had stated to me today, she set up that account in the 5-6 section underneath intergovernmental, under the citywide section of the budget, and they will then present payment against that dollar amount, and then they will draw off of the amount that's needed. So that money will stay in general government until they present the bills to be paid, and then the ARA would submit an invoice to get a check cut from that account, and the check would be...
the ARA would not be obligated to repay the city for the fuel.
Right, because then they don't have any funds.
Mr. Thibodeau?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, how much, or how difficult would it be to change it from a wet system to a dry system?
I actually had met with a sprinkler contractor out there to look at that. Part of the problem is that there are, I think it's four risers in that building, so it's 4 separate sprinkler systems.
Yeah.
So the cost, they could put a dry pipe valve, I'm sure you know what that is, and they could put a dry pipe valve in, and the cost for just the dry pipe valve was at least $5,000 per pipe valve. That wasn't including other labor that would have to be done. There'd have to be heat around the dry pipe valve enclosure, so they'd have to be built around, and of course, the four risers are not really anywhere near each other. So there'd be additional expenses with that. And then the more realistic problem is that because the system was designed wet, the pipes are not angled the correct direction. So what happens is water right now accumulates at the heads. With the dry pipe system, it's supposed to be tilted backwards a little bit, so that if, when they drain the system, all of the water drains backwards. So we would still have these long sections of pipe. So somebody would have to go in there, or the contractor would have to go in there and drain all of those pipes, and that's where you're looking at realistically probably $50,000 to convert it to dry. Plus, then they'd have to test it and manipulate some of the PIVs that are outside. And honestly, they're afraid to move them, because if they close it and it breaks, you're looking at $15,000 to replace that. Some of these haven't been operated in probably 30 or 40 years or longer. So that was actually the first thing that I had looked at.
Yeah.
If the building were going to be staying much longer,
Be more of an option.
I don't know if I could support anything other than that. If I thought that building was going to be standing for a few years, that would probably have been the option. But trying to be mindful that this is a building, the goal is to take it down. And I think, at least right now, the best option, honestly, is to keep it wet and pay the heat. And, there is a risk. The risk is if the boiler breaks down. But
Yeah, and then it's,
no.
doesn't matter. So
I mean,
it's going to happen, what's going to happen is
Right.
going to happen, which we don't want to be in that situation. I understand that's why we're going through all of this now, so we don't get to that point.
The good news, honestly, is, in terms of freezing for sprinkler systems, probably another 4 to 6 weeks is what we're really concerned about. Once you get to the end of February, there's the likelihood of a sprinkler system freezing is pretty slim.
If I can follow, Chief, is there any way to take that sprinkler system and keep the water flowing as you would using a simple reference, like you would keep a faucet going in a house so that the pipes in the house, drip, 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 so that the fact that the water is still flowing through rather than still, it's less likely to freeze. Is there any way to take that sprinkler system and is there some kind of a relief valve somewhere that could
relieve the pressure enough on the water that's coming in to allow it to drip and stay in motion.
The problem is it's not a loop system, so when you
Oh, you
have
don't
all-
have a loop? Oh.
you have all of these, heads at the end, you'd have to actually open
have
up
to
a
loop
head at
them
the
all
end of
together,
every line
yeah.
to actually do anything like that. Then the second problem is that we get a water flow along with the fire station.
Yeah, but if you knew.
Right, yeah.
If you knew what the situation was, you'd be
Right.
less likely
To go.
to
Yeah.
respond with a
Those are
vehicle anyway.
fantastic ice
Right,
sculptures.
so we'd have to take a head off at the end of every branch line, and, we're talking 70,000 square foot building. It's just, the labor to do it would be cost prohibitive.
I just heard
All
Mr.
right, thank
Conti
you.
say something, and I think that it's honestly something that the ARA had a very honest and open discussion about, which was, well, what happens if nothing happens and we just let it go? Well, not only would you have a fantastic ice sculpture, but when that thing melts, you now have a building that collapses upon itself and is now in a neighborhood in the street and in the storm drains, and we have to go and clean that mess up. So no matter what way, we actually sat and looked at every option available to us, and no matter what way we look at it, it's not gonna be a pretty scene.
Because then that water is an environmental hazard,
And then now it's in the,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
And now
Actually-
people are walking through it, driving through it, and now we gotta get demolition crews because now it's all the way in the street. So we tried to be able to encapsulate every single scenario of what would happen. This is probably the least, I mean, just alone from draining the sprinkler system or making modifications to it, to installing the fire beam system, to correcting the 4 PIVs, that would be actually closer to $20,000, to repair other pipes that we threw an estimate from what we could just tell at $20,000. Before we know it, we're already at or over $100,000. So that's when we said, you know what, this is ridiculous. The only viable option for us if this building's coming down is to be able to put the things together. Let's keep this building going. At least the building's been maintained. I mean, that's the biggest thing. The boiler's been running. It hasn't shut down fully, and the oil's turning the way that it's supposed to. So luckily, they're all over it. And again, I want to thank Leach Gardner for helping us do this, because this is a very unique experience that we have in a partnership with them, and they have been, without their support on this one and being a partner, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing right now. So I want to thank them for what they've been doing to help us out. Joe White, the president, and his staff with Joe Esposito and the rest of the crew over there, they know the chief. We pull all of the inspectors for EPA and DEP through the chief. We do the fire, the oil delivery through the chief. So the chief's our main contact, and he's dealing with the security folks over at Leach Gardner. So unless it's been passed through him as a security checkpoint, it has to go through the fire chief in order to be able to have them access the property.
Be very happy when it's taken down. I know way too much
sure
about
you
that.
Can I ask one more caveat, Mayor? Is the boiler gonna last till February?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's the key.
Yeah, if I could just add something to what Mr. Conti said about if you didn't do anything to the system. We had a house on Bridget Way last winter. Pretty new house that a gentleman living in another country bought it cash, so he had no homeowner's insurance on it. It was a gift for his daughter. They just got married. And a gentleman came to the fire station and said to me, oh, there's a water problem at such and such address. So I sent a truck over there. Well, that was an understatement. The water was coming out from the front door. And what had happened was the heating system had frozen. The problem is that when it freezes, nobody knows about it when it freezes. Freezing is not the problem.
It's the thawing.
The problem is when it expands and breaks and it melts when it gets warm enough. And that entire building had to be demolished. So here you have a $300,000 structure that was just had to be taken down. And that's the same thing that would happen. You'd have, in addition to all of the hazardous materials and all that other stuff that would be going on, we would have potentially so much water before we actually were made aware of it. There'd be nobody to get in there and shut it down. You'd have to be in the street to shut it down. And if that's in the winter with snow and ice, it's not that simple to shut it down. Valves break when you have to do those things. So it definitely could be a show that we would not want to see.
Mr. Cook?
Thank you. As mentioned during the special meeting when we were looking at this topic on mayor's communication, the mayor had mentioned that he would be giving us a lot more detail, so I do thank you for that. And in some respects, we've been able to get a lot of the information right here tonight. So I was going to suggest, Ms. Connie, since this is in your committee, and again, given the magnitude of the potential for a lengthy meeting on Tuesday night, and although I had Linda, post a meeting for your committee, an alternative from a parliamentary point of view, to consider, especially since we're getting a lot of this discussion now, is rather than having a committee meeting on Tuesday night, given the fact we're doing a lot of vetting of this issue right now, we can, by a 2/3 vote, just vote to discharge it from committee, and we can then take it up at that point and actually, vote it. That way, we don't have to have a separate committee meeting, if you decide not to. It might expedite matters on this issue quite a bit. So I'm just throwing it out for your consideration. And I understand what you said earlier about Mr. Denley not being here, and you're the chair. So I just wanted to, throw that out for your consideration.
We'll hold on to that as an option.
Thank you. And thank you for all the information on this matter, for that also you provide.
Thank you.
You also,
Appreciate it.
Mr. Blair?
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. I know we've been going, but
Nice job. Thanks.
we've got a number of other points to accomplish, Mayor.
I'm gonna go home and rest while you guys work it out.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And again, thank you, staff.
Thank you, have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, I'm gonna roll through the rest of this as quickly as possible. Thank you. I know it's been 2 hours already. I'm very appreciative, but as you can see, it's complicated, and this is just two departments, actually 3 departments, because we just kind of touched upon ARA a little bit, and we'll go back into that with the joint ITC project in a little while when we get down to that point. There's a lot going on with a lot of department interconnectivity, a lot of people working together, so that's pretty much the main motion as we go through a lot of these issues tonight. I'm just going to let Barry touch upon the water department and to be able to go over those projects and where we are with those right now.
I'll be brief. I'm not Frank.
Give them back for the
That was very
two
good.
Barry.
I can tell you're reading George Rhodes.
Someone brought it to my attention. I didn't even know about it, but we've got several projects in the water department. We've got the Wading River that you're all aware of. The West Basin is underway. The repairs are underway. The East Basin bids are due on January 29th. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that the same contractor that bid on the East Basin is going to bid on the West Basin. The Hoppin Hill Dam repair, the estimated cost is about $1.5 million. The city has been awarded a reimbursement grant of $160,000. The council approved the loan authorization for 1.5, and now Weston and Sampson is in the design phase for those repairs as well.
I'll do Luther.
Sure.
The Luther pump that ties into Manchester Reservoir levels, the pump continues, it's under rehabilitation, which is fantastic. It was a $13,000 repair. This is an expansion tank that's on the exterior of the building that's up at Luther Reservoir at the spillway, and that's the expansion tank that gives the pressure to the lift pumps to pump up to Manchester. So that is completely underway. The pump has still been running. It's been taken offline as the time they're doing the repairs. And that's why you've seen the levels starting to come up in Manchester. That's about halfway there. So certainly we've been able to enjoy the rain that we did receive and trying to get some of that water pumped. So even when the pump was under repair, during the times that they weren't working on it, it was still in operation, and that's why you've seen the levels rise in Manchester. So I just wanted to report on that because that was something that certainly was an issue of caution that I mentioned last time, and that the repair is A, underway, and B, that Manchester's been 50% filled. So that's really, really positive. I wanted to also touch upon the water meter. I know that I had a conversation with your council administrative assistant, Linda Alger, and that she had ended up providing some information to Councilor Conti. So just as a reminder that what we changed last year was that we were going to reimburse the water enterprise fund from the wastewater enterprise fund, only for those water meters that are installed on Seward accounts. So what we told Superintendent Milhouse at the time was to keep track of those meters. So right now, of the 1,411 water meters that have been installed over the last year's appropriation, 1,149 of those meters have been installed of the 1,411 that were ordered, and of that, 68% of those meters have been placed on Seward accounts. So we will be, as we continue to go through and install the last 262 meters, as soon as those meters are in and finished, the goal is to get that done by May. So that way we can be able to make the appropriation request from wastewater retained earnings to the Water Enterprise Fund. So it would be the same process that we're looking to, again, as we continue into the next water district, that we will reimburse 50% of those meters that are installed on sewer accounts. So I just wanted to give an update on that, and as a refresher. So in Tuesday's communication on the 20th, we'll send down that request again. I know there was some confusion last time on that issue.
It was left in committee, so it was still able to be brought out, but it was.
It was left in committee,
Yeah.
so you don't need anything
We
to
just-
actually come down again on Tuesday.
I had asked for it to be pulled out to make sure that the numbers were right for water and sewer. And I had asked Mr. Conti on that, and then your communication came down, so I think we're fine.
Okay.
But Mr. Conti?
Yeah, when we made the decision, it was a good decision. We just all forgot about it. It's that simple. I like the way we fund them, and I'm going to recommend to the committee that they put it through because it's a good plan. Why should they be paid by anybody other than the people who are responsible for using them? That's-
So we don't need anything for the 20th on that.
I think it's still in committee.
It's on committee, so.
It's still in committee, so it doesn't need a new communication.
Perfect. All right, great. So that's the update on that, just for everybody's knowledge. I wanted to just take
Peter,
care of
you
that.
have a question?
Just to, we didn't hold up on two of the other
Correct.
Correct.
portions of that.
Correct.
So the only thing we held in committee
Correct.
was the water meters.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Barry, did you want to touch base on the wastewater sludge landfill phase 3?
Still in design. We'll be going out to bid. It's necessary, of course, and, yeah, we'll just wait for those results to come in.
Which has been in the capital improvements program for a while.
And it's under design.
It's under design.
So that's what, when this goes out for bid for construction, then we'll update you with the results when we get that, those results in when we get to that point in time.
Once we get into design and construction, that's where we'll probably have to do some bonding.
Right.
Probably.
And of course, this is a place for us to be able to put the sludge cakes, I call them. After they come through the accordion press and they drop out, this is where the sludge cakes have to go.
Yeah.
So the current landfill is maxing out, and then this is the new phase 3 that's going to be created in order to house the next at least 10 to 15 years worth of sludge that's produced by the wastewater treatment plant.
Until we find someone to buy those cakes. Goal.
That's a project for Mr. Lacasse. Okay.
Go
Great.
for it, thank you.
Recreation, I wanted to be able to give the update. I know I've posted some information out there. Tomorrow, Mr. Arazian has the meeting with the state, which is fantastic for the closeout, so we can get a $200,000 reimbursement from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the $415,000 some odd dollar project for the Briggs Playground. The only thing that's not completed is because it's too cold for the paint to go down for the basketball courts and for the street hockey area that's been constructed. That's the last portion that has to be done in the spring, and of course we'll have a nice grand opening in the spring when we finish that for all of you and for the neighborhood and for all the kids. The project came out fantastic. They did a great job. National Grid's just changing out some lights over at the park. It looks absolutely fantastic, and it's exactly the way that we designed. The design that we showed you is what got constructed on time and on budget. So we're really, really happy about that, and it looks fantastic. The kids are going to have a fantastic time. It is closed for the winter, and there is a sign stating that, but we will hit the grand kickoff as soon as the weather breaks in the spring, and it's a fantastic facility, and it's exactly what we were shooting for. It's fantastic. I'm so proud of the facility, and I just want to thank the departments that were involved. The Highway Division worked with Recreation, worked with the Department of Planning and Development, and all of us in our project meetings with the design consultants, the architects, and the construction crews. That was a heavy lift to get that done. From when you allowed the project to go on, we delivered it by the 31st of December. So, congratulations to all the crews for working together. That was a very heavy lift to do in a matter of just a little over a quarter. Those people were absolutely fantastic. So it was 4 months.
September to December.
4 months, and that was a project on steroids I could never seen, but we got it done. We will, this summer, we will be doing rehabilitation work in the neighborhood. And that was what we talked about separately. Originally, we want to try to put it as part of the project. We will tease that out, and that's going to be all the readjustment of the curbing and concrete sidewalks all the way around the recreational facility, from Pine Street up both East and School, and wrapping around over on from Hazel's, or Parker, I'm sorry, on Parker Street. To be able to do that whole block and tie that up all together, it's going to look fantastic, but we're really excited about that. So I hope that you are too. It looks great.
It's going to bring back street hockey.
Well, the residents take so much pride in
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
Peter?
If I could, Mayor,
Sure.
I would like to be an active part in that grand opening, per se. So we'll have two parties, but two get-togethers for the East Side people,
Nice.
so that we can further that relationship of ownership.
Absolutely.
I'm proud of it. I know you are, along with my fellow councilors, how that facility has just flourished, and how the neighbors have taken ownership and of that facility as it is now. And I just want to further it along so that it continues in that path.
We will gladly accept the help for that. So,
Thank you.
Absolutely. Count yourself in. Anyone else that wants to help with that? Take the help.
As a suggestion, maybe we should let Peter take the first shot on goal or play it.
Hey,
I want to see that.
I
put
hate
him on
to
the zip
tell you,
line.
but
There we go.
at my age, I don't play any outdoor sports.
That's when they used to have the milk crate up, you know, back in the day.
suggesting that you play indoor sports.
We're
Moving along.
moving on.
Moving along to the park department.
Basketball just goes in there.
All right, gentlemen.
So what are we on,
Moving
park?
along to the park department, as you're well aware, we were not successful on the first round of the application under the park program, PARC program, for the rehabilitation of Angel Park, but we will be refiling under the new administration. So when this round comes up in 2015, we will be refiling. So I just want to let you know of our intention to try that again. It is a great project, and it's truly needed for that area too. That means a lot for that neighborhood over at Park and Emery.
Do you have a question? Go ahead,
That's
Mr.
a great
Wade.
question. Hey, what was the reasoning that we weren't approved for that grant? I know last time there was really no reason. Did we get anything?
No, there was nothing that said,
yeah.
there was just that, I think that probably because we already had one project with a recreational
Right.
component that was done, even though it was a different program, probably for another municipality, maybe that didn't have any type of program, they probably wanted to touch that municipality too. But we do have another opportunity. The great thing is that they have these funds available every single year, and they open up the grant applications for us. So there should be one spring to summer that we can apply for, and we're gonna put in our application. The good thing, the application's already done.
Right.
And that we qualified for all the main points to even be an applicant. So, I mean, that's really getting your foot in the door first. Kind of like what we just did for the high school, which we'll get to in a few minutes, but we cover the points to be able to at least be eligible to apply, which is good.
Thank you.
If we were successful, are we going to have to do a 4-month construction again, or is that going to?
It's a different program. Underneath that program, you end up having quite a long time to actually do your design, and the way that that was cycling, that you would do the design in one year, and you would do the construction in another year, which was completely and utterly different than what we had to do to squeeze in to get that for the Briggs Playground. So it would be, the way that that is designed, unless they change it for next year, but that it was designed the way that you do design 1 year and wrap that all up nice and tidy, and then go into construction the next.
Okay, thank you.
The next issue, with the treasurer, as you're aware, you had appropriated funds for the demo of the Falmouth Street property that was taken by tax title, the old Antea Brothers building. And so the treasurer is actively working with the licensed site professional and the company in order to be able to do what needs to be done to get that building remediated and to get it down. I just want to let you know that she's in process, and she's working with Doug Healy from ES&M and the contractor. So I just wanted to give you an update on that.
That would probably come down in the spring to summer?
I would probably think that that's realistic, especially since we have bids in hand.
Right.
They're working through some technical issues right now, but that she is actively working on it.
Okay.
Means a lot to her because she needs to make sure that that's finished. That was a project that she and I started together with the commitment that we would get the building down or fully remediated into someone else's hands. And so she knows as she's wrapping up her last term, she wants to get this done as soon as possible as well.
Okay.
At this point, I just want to be able to talk and turn it over to Mr. Lacasse for his section under budget admin.
Beginning with the OPEB, as you may recall, you tooketh away, but you gaveth back, so that $35,000, I'm very grateful for that. The $35,000 is now placed in a separate account, but it's really what it represents that's important. When we establish this OPEB trust, which is a trust document, it's already been drafted, it's making its way through the various departments to make sure that everybody understands it. But once it's finalized, that will be the controlling document over not only this $35,000, but every annual appropriation that goes into this trust. And it's, as I said, $35,000 is not a lot of money, but what it symbolizes to our actuarials is that it will allow us to take advantage of a lower discount rate, which lowers our outstanding liability, and that's always a good thing. So that's the method to the madness, and we thank you for that $35,000, and we plan on having an annual appropriation to put more money into this OPEB trust.
The $35,000 was to offset what we were, or was dedicated money that we had done with the change in the tax with the restaurants?
No, what we're planning on doing is to at least put this amount of money back in every year. But the theory is to take the hotel tax and put that in here. Obviously, we want a big hotel in the IBP, but until that happens, I think it's fair to say that we'll still be funding the OPEB trust on an annual basis, whether it's $35,000 or not. Ultimately, the hotel tax is going to be earmarked for this trust.
And the reason I'm asking is, do we have any clue as to if we're close onto the $35,000 or in terms of bringing that in from that tax?
From the hotel? No, we're not. We don't have major hotel. Right now, we've received $12,000 so far for the hotel tax, but that's nothing to sneeze at. That's about half a year. So with the new hotel, that's going to obviously increase significantly.
Just on a note that what we're looking to do with that is that we're going to actually transfer some of our existing retiree health care costs that are in the personnel budget eventually going into the trust, and the trust can pay those bills. And so if we're taking a couple $100,000 out of the personnel section of the budget for retiree health care and putting it into the trust, that will dramatically start to lower that discount rate and to be able to get more bang and lower that liability even further. Just a little bit more to what Mr. Lacasse said.
So it just means changing where we pay those.
But when you are transferring that amount of money in, it makes a difference in our outstanding liability long-term.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to two projects that are near and dear to my heart. We'll begin with the animal shelter. The animal shelter is plugging along. If anyone's been down there, you'll see the structure, you see the wonderful lines that that has been created. So it's a beautifully designed building. It is not going as fast as we would like it to go. The contractors originally got about 8 weeks behind because of their foundation guide wasn't showing up, and through a variety of other reasons, we're not on schedule. We still expect an opening in spring, but that just means that the contractors and the subs are going to have to be working over the winter time. And so the doors are on, the windows are in, the building is becoming tighter. Right now, the kennel section, we have 20 kennels for the dogs. Those little doors are still open. We're going to have we ordered the guillotine doors, and these are the doors that go up and down, allow the dog to go outside and inside. Unfortunately, we had a break-in a week and a half ago, and they didn't take all the guillotine doors. What they took are the guillotine door rails, which is an integral part of installing the guillotine doors. So we're going to end up ordering some new rails, get those in, and then get those guillotine doors installed. The doors were the city's responsibility. As you recall, when we went out for a second bid, the city accepted some of the responsibility for supplying some items. That's one of them. I can say that through Department of Public Works, Highway Division, they've done an outstanding job providing some of the other services that we were obligated to do. Some of the concrete pads around in the walkways have been installed. They look absolutely beautiful. Bobby Arugio and his crew did an outstanding job. I can't thank them enough. Even in the bitter cold weather, they were pouring concrete, leveling it, installing trench drains. It's just amazing the talent he has over there with his crews. So I can't thank them enough for that. So it's about 56% completed if you look at how much we've paid to Coletta so far and how much we have left to pay him. That's just roughly. It's a very complicated building inside. You have a lot of HVAC work that goes into it to provide that good quality air. But it really is taking shape. And if you haven't seen it lately, please go down there and take a look at my favorite color, of course, is green, and it's green, and it looks just absolutely beautiful. Moving on to
Mr. Conte?
Just one piece of good news that you can't, there's always more to be said, and in the time constraints, you can't say everything, but the good news is that there's still $511,000 in the account to finish the building, and it's going to be able to do that. So I'm pleased with, well, I'm not pleased with the timing schedule. I'm pleased to see that financially the project's on track.
It is on track. It's tight. I will not deny that. It's tight, but it's on track.
It's been plagued by some change orders, but it's been blessed with some reimbursements.
Absolutely.
So it's the Friends of the not enough can be said about the Friends of the Attleboro Animal Shelter. They are doing everything they can to help the project along.
And you were there last night. You know that Kim Penquay is always there. So
yeah, so I have a lot of faith that. I wish that it would inherit some of the speediness of Bridge Playground, but that's not going to happen. It's at the best, it does look like we'll be able to finish the project on budget. And that concludes my comment.
Thank you.
So what are we on the concession stand?
Well, and just in terms of that, I know we had a conversation last week, the Youth Commission had volunteered if there's some little jobs in bringing the concept of Blue Pride over to the animal shelter as well, and maybe doing some either landscaping or interior painting or doing some work with you, and that can be done through, so the Youth Commission is looking for those type of volunteer activities, so I'm sure we'll be working with you and bringing that Blue Pride, not just from the concession stand, but moving it over to the animal shelter as well.
that would be wonderful. And there's a lot of work to be done once the weather breaks and we can do plantings and landscaping and things like that, painting, so that would be wonderful.
Awesome.
Concession stand. Just a couple of quick, interesting numbers. This Saturday will be our 25th Saturday. So if you look at if you go down to the concession stand, you look at it, that's 25 days of work, which just completely blows my mind.
Yeah.
But
Well, congratulations to you too. You did a lot there.
Thank you. I am surrounded by wonderful volunteers. There's over 300 volunteers that have touched every piece of building material in that facility. Many of you, the mayor, I can't thank you enough. It's just been a wonderful experience in Blue Pride and community pride. I will mention a couple of I'd love to call out everybody, but Louis Oliveira from South Main Street Dunkin' Donuts deserves a call out. To date, he has given us 96 dozen donuts, which hasn't boded well for me.
But you ate 80 dozen yourself.
I can't let him go to waste. 1,600 cups of coffee.
He's a graduate at Attleboro High too.
He is, and he's so proud, and every time I send him a text, I say, Louis, we're working this Saturday, can you help us? No problem, no problem. What do you need? Just pick it up. And I will also, Burt Buckley has served, by my estimation, 440 breakfast sandwiches, which again, but, so we've got, and those, we've just got some wonderful people working down there, and I can't thank them enough. We're about 60% done down there, I would say. We've had to find ourselves, though, having to go out to bid for several items that we simply couldn't keep up with. The interior block work, the CMU block work, it has gone out to bid. That's $15,000. The remaining plumbing work has been bid. Paul Hazelton, who's been one of the volunteers down there, bid on it, and he was fortunately the lowest bid at $24,000. So he's going to finish all the plumbing work. And the stone veneer, which is just makes this thing pop. And that's just, a wonderful addition to this facility. Had to go out to bid as well, because that's a very technical and skilled craft. So most of the doors have been installed. The sliding windows, the 3 service sliding windows and the sliding door for the storage room have been installed. The main metal roof on the building has been installed. It's dark bronze. Thank you, Mayor. We had to go through a number of different renditions on just to see. I mean, some people said, well, how about just, blue? How would blue look? And we put it to a rendition, we're like, oh, that's a lot of blue. So we went with what the mayor's intuition was, which was dark bronze, and it really does look sharp. The tower roof, the metal roof is about half done. We're going to be putting the rest of that on Saturday. We're going to be putting the windows in the tower in on Saturday. If you're free, come down and have some donuts. And we've spent to date probably about $250,000 on building materials and some of the bids that we talked about, which is unbelievable. When the bids came in at over $800,000, that's incredible. And again, I am guaranteeing that this thing's going to be open in the spring. We're working this Saturday, and we're going to be working whenever weather allows. But once we have it buttoned up, we have temporary heat in there. We can still continue to do some work in there, and so I'm hoping for a spring opening. So that's that. Now on to not so fun stuff. Budget update. I'll be quick, I promise. I know it's getting late. Let me talk about general government first. Year-to-date expenditures through December 31st. Overall, we're about 53.9% expended on our expenses in general government. To put it in perspective, last year at this time, we were about 54.8% expended. So that's a little bit of good news. We've got our watch list. Overtime is always on our watch list. Police, fire, overtime, animal control overtime. So we always keep that on our radar screen. We're working with the chiefs to maintain appropriate levels and to make sure that that money is being used wisely. I will mention that we are expecting to be short on many of our electrical accounts. Thank you, National Grid, for the 37% increase. For general government, quick estimate is about $94,000 we'll need at some point. On the local receipts end, so we go from expenses to receipts, again through December 31st, so we're 50% through the year. Overall, we've collected 46.4%. Last year, we were at 48.6%, so we're in the ballpark of what we collected same time frame as last year. 2 items on my watch list are motor vehicle excise. We budgeted $4.3 million to collect. We've collected 15% so far, and don't be alarmed by that number. Last year at this time it was 18%, and that's because the big commitment hasn't gone out and we haven't received the money, which we typically will in March. But even though last year we're only 18% collected at this point in time, we ended up finishing the year 15% over budget, which is a good thing. So it's still something to be watched. On fees, we budgeted $320,000. We're approximately 21% collected. Last year, we were 49% collected. The big difference is that last year, we had 3 DPW inspection fees for 3 major subdivisions come in. We don't have that this year, unfortunately. So that was the big bump last year, but that's on our watch list. A couple of items that are beating expectations are penalties and interest. We're budgeted at $390,000. We are 56% collected, and we were 44% collected last year at this time. In rentals, we budgeted $152,000. We're approximately 70% collected. Last year, we were 64%. So those are beating expectations. Moving on now to the enterprises.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Conti?
Last time I looked, we were on an electrical contract, which I interpreted to be a price lock program.
That's a supply, not distribution.
What's the difference?
So
37%.
No, I understand the 37% increase.
That's the person who actually generates electricity, whoever that may be. In this case, it's Constellation, who we are under contract with. That's a fixed cost. That rate this fiscal year went from 0.07 to 0.0959. So that's our current rate that we have locked in for Constellation. So that was a small increase that we had budgeted for in this fiscal year. However, what was not budgeted and what was unforeseen was the 37% increase in the distribution charge, and that's from National Grid. So National Grid can generate, but it is not our generator, it's Constellation. So there's two portions on your bill. If you look at your own utility bill at home, there's a distribution charge and there's a generation charge. So it is the distribution charge that went up by 37%. That's what was calculated by department, by account number. You can imagine how long the spreadsheet was for every single electric account by department, and that's how it was calculated for the number that Ms. Locast stated.
Will we see any advantage from fuel prices?
Yes.
Gasoline?
Yeah, gas and diesel.
If they stay.
If they
yes.
stay,
But
but-
we're realizing a savings
At this point.
at this point in time now because of the major drop in gasoline prices. Market's still volatile. We don't know what's going to end up happening. Pretty much the market indicators are saying, consider this a one-time gift and consider it like you're taking your tax return and having a little fun with it because it's not going to last forever. So that's pretty much what the market indicators are saying at this time. Only the future will tell.
Okay.
On the enterprises, water revenue, we're $3.9 million collected to date, or at least at December 31st. That's up to $301,000 or 8% over last year. Water expenses are understandably $61,000 higher than 14. Items go up, chemicals go up, salaries go up, those sort of things. I did mention the electric increase will also hit our enterprises. For water, it's estimated to be about $49,000 at some point we'll have to bring back into the proper account. Wastewater revenue, we're at $4.8 million collected as of December 31st. That's up $98,000 or 2% over same time last year. Wastewater expenses, again, $84,000 higher than 2014 to date, but again, chemicals and other expenses like that understandably increase that number. For wastewater, which uses more electricity, the National Grid increase is going to result in about $102,000 appropriation from probably retained earnings into their electric accounts. So that's your quick and down and dirty budget update.
Any questions regarding budgetary issues?
I just understand it so much better this year than I did last year. This is great.
Isn't that good?
That's a good thing.
It is a good, it's just my year of experience. I'm sitting here, I don't mean to take up time. Go ahead.
You're very diligent, thank you. Whenever I call you, email, or anything, you have right there your spreadsheet. So
Thank you very much.
Moving on to next projects. Great news yesterday. And so I had a nice conversation with Mr. Rhodes last night on the telephone and via email, trying to be able to explain specifically what this process is. So as you probably have already read, the process that we've been invited into eligibility, just like Mr. Locast likes to say, when in the blazing hot heat of Florida, Walt Disney invites you to stand 3 hours in line. Well, we've been invited into eligibility.
That's their words. You hear it on the loudspeaker. We invite you to stand in line and wait for the next available ride. It's like 98 degrees out.
But I still had fun.
It's still fun.
It's still fun.
So we've been invited into eligibility, which is the first major step in order to get your foot in the door. There's up to 270 days to be able to respond to the bulleted items that we have to provide to them, which is not going to take 270 days for us. We will work on getting those items together. I did receive an email today. I have not opened it, but I did see that it came from the person who's been assigned to us. And so there was a specific person from MSBA that's assigned to the city now. We will work with that person, get those required documents together up to MSBA, and then at the appropriate time where they say yes and they bless those documents, then we will be invited into feasibility. When we get invited into feasibility, that's where we're really going to get into some fun as it relates to specifically working with the school building committee. And just as a reminder, that's the Municipal Building Commission plus all the school officials. It's just instead of the MBC, the SBC. Just invite more people into the family project. So we'll be working together and to understand of the whole rehabilitation of the high school, what portions specifically are going to be attributed to this first phase. So while we're going to work on the the windows and the HVAC. There are other components of the project that most likely will be disturbed that will have to be brought into the first phase. That identified process will be done by the consultant that's chosen, that really are the specialty firm that deals with school buildings and renovations, not just in Massachusetts, but across the country. We'll work in selecting that firm, and they'll help us through that process, which will then lead to the full architectural plans and then to the construction for the first phase. So they're gonna help us through that process. So we'll be bringing you along in that. So if you haven't been tired of the rest of the things on the MBC, Councilor Conti, you've got many projects to come on that. But this is a big thing for the district. This is a big thing for the city. The challenge, of course, is going to be to work through a phased rehabilitation with students in the building and timing and all of that jazz. So that's going to be a massive project for our administration to embark on. That's going to be a multi-year project and very, very detailed and very complicated, but we're really excited to work with MSBA on this one. I have my project folder upstairs that I've been pushing on this real heavy since 2012. So it's taken us that long to be invited into the eligibility. And we were really happy. So they gave us the opportunity, they came, they met with us, and they chose us in this round, and we're really excited about that. So I hope that you're excited about that too, for the flagship of the district.
I think we voted it 3 times.
You did?
So,
Statement of interest,
That's it.
absolutely.
Every time was a charm.
Mrs. Parika?
If I may, just,
Sure.
if we could be slightly more specific, ultimately, how many people were invited? What is the process going across the board? Like, how many
Only-
people didn't?
At our meeting yesterday was Wednesday, right?
Yes.
These weeks are all mismatched. Yesterday, there were 12 of us invited into eligibility out of over 102 applications to enter into a process. We were one of 12 yesterday. It's expected that there'll be an additional 3 for a total of 15 that are being invited into eligibility. So that's just to show you that it was competitive and that it was truly based on most need, for those people that are in most need and that are most ready.
Are they compatible to us, like Adler size, the school?
No, they're all over the place,
All
Council.
over the
They're different sizes. Some are towns, some are cities.
No,
There was from Fall River, Woburn. There were towns, as you saw in the newspaper as well. It was Bristol County Agricultural High School was involved in this as well. Just some of those are just 4 that I can name off the top of my head that were invited yesterday.
If I may follow up.
Good follow-up.
So ultimately, well, how many do they whittle it down to? Is it 1? Is it 5?
No, we're all in. So all 15 of us are into eligibility. As long as all 15 of us provide that necessary documentation within that 270-day period, all of us will be invited into feasibility.
Okay.
And as long as you continue along the process, then you're in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Conti, follow-up?
So once you're in feasibility, who gets funded is dependent upon how much dollars there are available and how much the project costs on the 15 different locations.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's not just based upon dollars. They do have to have, of course, a budget because they wouldn't be able to expend those. Not everybody's going to be ready at the same time, so they look at this as a multi-dimensional process that's ebbs and flows. So there will be some that are going to be more ready more quickly, and out of those dollars that they have available, those will be funded first. Those that are trickling through the process, because remember, some of them are town meeting and it's only once a year. So you're going to cross funding cycles for them, and so it's not just like we working in our own terms here with our own budget and our own capital items. It's all over the place for all of these different school districts when they're ready, when funding is available. Their public hearings, their public meetings, and whether or not they have to go to town meeting, they're all over the place. But once they have great flexibility within their cap, so they have to provide not only those people that they're inviting in, they have an idea of what they have, but certainly they have the opportunity. So for example, if they say that we're going to grant you in and they didn't have enough money in one sector, they may choose to say, all right, but when you hit to the construction phase, that's going to be in the next round of funding, so you won't start that until this year. So, but you'll certainly have the design money available to get you through design. when we finally get to the design component after we leave feasibility, by the time we actually finish that process, we'll be looking at space needs. We'll be looking at the utilization of the building today versus the utilization of the building in the future. They're looking at population trends. They're looking at programming now, how programming will change. So it is a massive, comprehensive feasibility of the processes of the high school as a whole, whether or not administration, central administration, whether they're out or whether they're in. So it's that comprehensive of the whole high school and every facility and every room and how they use it.
Mr. Cook?
Thank you. No, this is indeed good news, but I was curious, of the 8 deliverables over that 270-day period of time that are required, are some of them things that have to be provided by your administration, or is it by the school administration, or is it a combination thereof?
It's a combination. Most of it is on their side, but it's all handled, this process through capital projects, it's all handled here.
Right.
So we work in conjunction with the school department to get the necessary documentation in, and then we'll send up the package through our assigned person at MSBA.
Okay. And in terms of the schedule that they've developed, they being MSBA, there doesn't
No
appear to be any.
problem.
There's no problem just meeting all the various
Not at all.
deliverables? Okay.
We will certainly hit the 270-day mark without an issue.
And all the
We'll be
other
well in
ones,
advance.
and all the intermittent ones all the way down the line.
Absolutely.
Good, thank you.
Sure.
Questions on this? Any others?
As you also know, just because we didn't make round one with the technology upgrade, the system-wide technology upgrade, I'm not going to get into the specifics of where we've been and the strides that we made so far with the INET, the institutional network. We're not going to cover that tonight. Just the fact for the next phase, we didn't make round one of the technology upgrade, but we are in receipt of the top 3 winning bids that were chosen underneath the first round of the project, so we're going to be analyzing those. And so when Governor Baker makes the next round of funding available, we'll be tweaking our application to try to be even better than our first application, to try to be chosen. We want to try to capture as much of that grant money as possible instead of us having to come up with the full $2 million on our own. The sooner the better, and it's not something we want to put off forever. So we do want to make sure that we capture the most dollars that we can out of the next round. So we're hopeful that that's going to be sometime in calendar 2015. I don't know whether or not it's going to be spring, summer, or fall, but somewhere in the next several months the next round should be open. And we just want to I wanted to let you know that we're working on that and that we'll be ready for that next application period. Okay. As your honorable body is aware, I had made an appropriation request for safety gear and equipment. It deals with a variety of departments that we met with personnel. Jan Silverman had sat down with Beth in her office, now in conjunction with Owen, sitting down and going through all of the issues that we have within the Highway Division, the Water Department, the Wastewater Department, the Department of Park and Forestry are the 4 departments that are on the road. We did a total assessment in the conference room after a couple of meetings, determining who has the proper cones, who needs cones, what size cones, and try to make things universal across the board. What type of gear, and we decided that everybody's having the same high-level gear to be able to make sure that we're all at the same level. So regardless of the speed of the vehicles that are traveling on a secondary road or a primary road, they're all at the top priority level, and so everyone will have the same reflective gear, everyone will have all new reflective vests who are out on the street working, and that's something that my administration wanted to be absolutely clear to say, listen, you have the budget within your own budgets to maintain what we do, but we also need to be communicating through our staff meetings that we need to make sure that we're all on the same page to have the tools and the safety gear necessary to do the jobs. So this was a comprehensive review that we did of equipment as well. So there's arrow boards, there's some things that need to be put in the back of tractors, there's things that need to be made sure reflective, new lights, new strobes, everything comprehensive. We sat down with all departments and we're doing one blanket order to maximize our dollar from all of the vendors possible to save as much money as possible. So even though they're going to be specific accounts, we're doing one giant order pending your approval, so we can make sure that we get all that done all at one time. And then we'll have one central point of receiving to make sure they're all checked off for inventory purposes, and that we all get them out distributed to all the departments. But those are all 4 departments that are out on the street dealing with their gear and their equipment needs. So everyone's coming all up to speed all at once. And again, everybody has money in their budget for general ongoing maintenance, but just kind of like what we were doing in the police and fire department for protective gear, we're doing this all at one time for those 4 departments. As you are well aware, when we have new employees that come in, they are geared up as soon as that. So we make sure that those people, again, when they're hired, they have the necessary equipment that fits them and that it's new. And that's, again, in the departmental budgets that we have existing. So this is just for a rehab of everything that we have existing in those 4 departments. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that.
Very good.
MassWorks, it's been a complicated project with Riverfront Drive, Riverfront Park, and that's the project down where the current DPW HD is located, as well as the water department. We hit a snag. So we ran into some issues for some additional geotechnical survey work that had to be done on the roadway bed. There's some areas where they started to dig where the ground isn't as stable as they needed to support the infrastructure for utilities. So therefore, in layman's terms, the water sewer lines and the gas and drain lines, they wouldn't hold underneath the roadway pressure. It came back originally, broad brushstroke, as an $800,000 change order to deal with the problem if they had to do full excavation down to elevation level 103.3 for the whole width of the road. So we asked them to go back and work at some different alternatives. They came back with those alternatives yesterday, and those alternatives that were given from the contractor have been given to the design architect. He has to stamp those plans for those alternatives to see which ones will work and which ones will not. The contractor did tell me that alternative 2, although it is an alternative, as he was directed to do, probably will not work due to the fact that the water and sewer main would be in material that's not proper. And so therefore, if there was a leak in any of those pipes, it would not be detected, and that's why you have to go with the first one. So the alternative 1 is about $573,000, and we'll be working to overcome that hurdle. I do have some contingency money, but we're going to be working with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts through the DOT to be able to work with them to allow some Chapter 90 money to be used for the project. They've asked that we accept the roadway now. So I will be bringing the redevelopment authority and the rest of my crew who work on the project up to speed with that news. And we'll be seeking the funds for the street acceptance plans. So you'll be seeing those soon. That'll be coming down. But I have to overcome the project. We got to keep on going. So that's the good. So we have the hurdle. We're going to overcome the hurdle. Ms. Locas was working with me on that yesterday. So we have identified a way to come over the hurdle. Just wanted to make you aware of that. But we will be working on that through the spring, of course, which is kind of the next portion that I want to refer to, skipping down to 2 bullets, down to the DPW Highway Division and Water Department buildings. As you're aware from the communication tonight, the good thing is that for the functional replacement for the architectural design, the ARA is covering that through the bond, which is great. And so we're going to be awarding that contract. We're also in need to award the water department portion because they're going to be architecturally designing the new building down on West Street, as you know. So that's the $88,000 that we need from the water retained earnings to be appropriated. Again, it is not an emergency, which is why I didn't send it down as an emergency, even though you guys know it's coming. We do need to get going on these contracts. The sooner we can get these designed, we need to immediately put them out to bid so we can get the sound dollar amounts to come back and ask you for the necessary funding to do. I need to get these designed fully as quickly as possible because I need to get these out to bid on the street as quickly as possible so we can get the dollar amount to get to you for construction so I can get these bloody things constructed as quickly as possible because I'm going to have to tear down the existing Department of Public Works Highway Division this year. I'm not going to say what months, we're not going to get into that right now, but we do need to get this going as soon as possible because as the road continues from Olive Street towards Wall Street, they're going to be coming piece by piece closer and closer to DPW. The good thing is that I have to report is that Lamb Street is fantastic. Lamb Street and all of the work down there is pretty much tidied up. Electric is to the property. National Grid has been working with Mr. Lacasse on the animal shelter power. I took on the responsibility to work on the portion for the highway division over on Lamb Street. So we do have power to the site now. They'll be doing their testing work for the fuel pumps to make sure that's all set and ready to go. All utilities are onto the property. So that's all ready to go, and we'll be testing that stuff. But we're really excited, so things are moving in that direction as well, and we're on schedule for that. So that's fantastic. But we do need the funding for the water department building as quickly as we can as well.
When will we be able to start fueling from down at Lamb Street? Because that looks like to be the first thing that you'll be able to do.
Well, here's the good thing. Gas prices are down, and I have extra money in fuel. So we can certainly be able to start fueling up the systems.
Testing it.
We're going to be testing out the systems, testing the generator power for the systems. There's ancillary building work that has to be done in that little house, the little hut that's down there. DPW is going to be working on that throughout the winter. But we should be good to go and transfer over sometime in the spring and stop using the existing facility, go to the new one. DPW will be working with GATRA and the rest of our project team to start to buy all the necessary keys and the fueling keys and the programming software, so we can start to, the DPW Highway Division, Kathy Rigo upstairs is gonna be programming every single vehicle into the new system. We'll start testing it out with the new keys. So we'll have dual keys for a while, the old keys and the new keys. Once all the bugs have been worked out of the system, all the transponders are in the vehicles for the gate systems, and we've worked out all the kinks, then we will fully decommission the existing highway facility, the central fueling down on Wall Street, and we'll switch over. So we're looking for a time frame in the spring to officially switch over.
Okay. Okay.
Excellent.
Sounds good.
Deb, our city auditor, will be meeting with you folks in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Lynn was sending out a memo, I think today.
Okay.
That I've had to you, but
She's coming to my committee meeting.
Right, on the 27th.
27th.
Yeah, I've had, just for the rest of you for background information, I had discussions with, with Deb Gould relative to this matter of wanting to come down, going back to sometime in mid-late December. So we've been trying to figure out a time when to come down here to get additional information, but the whole purpose was, as started a year ago, was for her to come down, give us an update on these ever-moving costs involving school transportation issues. So, so she will be coming down at that meeting with up-to-date information. And so it's something that she and I have discussed in recent weeks. So, and again, it's more just to keep us in the loop and to have us to avoid being totally surprised. I really appreciate Deb's willingness to track down this information, work with Mark Furtado and getting the information, and then making himself available to come down, present the information to us so that we can have a better understanding of what's going on, be able to ask questions, and hopefully plan accordingly. Okay.
So Deb will be down
On the 27th.
27th for that.
Committee meeting.
Committee meeting.
Things are not looking terribly bad. So this is a precursor. That's a nice thing to know.
Just leave that for that.
Let's see, that was a semi-compliment.
Compared to those things before, that's a good thing and not a bad thing. So,
It wasn't glowing.
Like that, not terribly bad.
not terribly bad.
If you said that about my outfit, I'd go and change.
So, but there are no major alarms. Let's just leave it that way. Okay. I do want to just put on your radar screen, we still have the second finding that's out there with CDBG for the remainder of the jobs that were never created by the former ARA. That's still hanging out there.
Which is
I
a
just want
$700,000 bill, isn't it?
This is the only thing that's remaining. We ended up paying the first portion back. There's still $168,000 that's out there.
Oh, 168.
When we're dealing with $3 million for Swank, and that's a relatively small amount overall. But I just wanted to put that on the radar screen that still is out there. So, yes, so that's out there. And lastly, as we close up tonight, the reason why I asked for this time, as you can certainly see, this has been an extremely busy 6 months. a lot of things changed, and it was referenced in an article that Georgia did several weeks back for the end of year story and going into 2015, and I just want to talk about this for a few minutes because things changed in the end of 14 from July through December, and they're changing as we continue into 2015. I can't put my hand on it specifically when it started to happen, but you can see from the types of issues that we talked about tonight, there is a tremendous amount of interdepartmental communication, cooperation, and dependability on everyone. To literally, I think that you can see from the topics we talked about tonight, there's a tremendous amount of workload on all of our shoulders that is extremely complex. Issues are going back and forth. We need answers daily. This is a tremendous amount of workload. I'm very proud of everyone, and I want everyone to know that, and I've been telling the staff I'm so proud of them. We're really thinking outside the box. We're doing things differently. We're thinking of things in different types of perspectives, and you can see that type of thing happening just from the two chiefs being here tonight. I'm really proud of them, and it's transforming the way we look at things and the types of projects that we're doing and making a difference in the city, and I'm very, very proud of that, and it takes a lot of hard work and determination. But again, transforming into something, Council Preek and I just touched upon it the other day, as we were talking about some other things about just not how busy we are, but the level of projects that are coming down the line. The amount of specifications that we're going to be having to go through for not only our current projects that we're wrapping up, this has taken a large amount of Mr. Lacasta's time. It's been very strenuous on the administration as a whole for the amount of projects we're doing, but we're not stopping on the projects. We're going to be doing them, but we hopefully will be adjusting some staff in fiscal 2016, but also how we look at staffing overall from now, the snapshot in time, looking 10 to 12 years down the line. And we're getting into this term that we were talking about with Jan and Owen as we're focusing now on personnel matters for the whole city. You people are one of the first ones to experience this yourselves. Linda Alger's retiring this year. There's a tremendous amount of, yes, we can't block the ears. It's coming. That is a tremendous amount of knowledge walking out the door. What we're trying to look at, and I've had discussions with the council president, we're going to have to look at things differently and bring people in, hire in advance, and do the training necessary with Linda before she goes, and maybe making some adjustments as we go through that process. Not only just of that, but the public safety department's been going through this now for 2 years. All of the people who were hired in the 70s and 80s who are going out, they're going through the last third and two-thirds of that transition over the next 2 years. Well, what happens when we're taking a look at the rest of general government? And one of the things that's very difficult for us, and I know that you understand, that our department head level positions in the city are not just senior management. We're also working management. However, we do not have people underneath us to assist us in that development with our staff. So the difficulty is that while we're doing these complex projects, we're also having to produce work on top of the planning and execution. So middle management really isn't that in existence. We've put those into place now in police and fire with the captain structure and in police, and making sure that the in-house work and the out on the street work is being done with police, with the assistant chief position and recreation. In the fire department with Tim Killian to assist Dennis in recreation. We're trying to identify the other levels within the administration that have to start to be looked at, and to recognize talent in-house and start sending people to school to get ready for the next transition, because we're not producing these management level positions. We've seen it in wastewater. We've seen it when we look for wastewater, water, DPW, highway division, personnel. Well, it's not stopping, because we're going to continue to see those things over the next 10 to 12 years. Most of management will be changing all over again. So when you have department heads who have been here for a while with the level of institutional knowledge, with no one underneath them with that level of skill set, and they're going to be going, it takes a long time to get ready for that. So we're going to start to try to work on in the next, looking at this scope in the next 10 to 12 years. You know, I'm not saying, Mr. Lacasse, you look great for your age, but you're going to be in your 60s by that point. And I mean, when we start to look at what happens, we're going to be at that age. You know, I will be moving on at some point, whether I get booted or whether I decide not to run again, or for yourselves, or for, you know, for Gary Arasian. You know, Gary, from his graduate degree, has been here his entire career. Yeah. Well, at some point, at that point, in another 10 to 12 years, Gary's in his 60s. And so if we don't have the deputy director director of planning position, and we don't have these other positions to get ready to start to train for these people, we're going to have an issue. And what is the issue? It's her. It's the city of Attleboro, it's government, and what we provide to people. So we're kind of transforming and putting our eyes on that to say, how do we start to get ready for that, and how do we start to envision what this is going to look like? Recognize the talent, putting people to school, getting people ready for those people that do have talent in-house, while also start to get ready to maybe establish some positions to get things moving in that direction, because long-term, we need to be ready for that. And whether we like it or whether we don't, it's coming. I'd like to think that I'm no older than I was 11, 12 years ago, but I certainly am. Well, that's going to continue to happen for all of our workforce here. And you're seeing that all those people who came in together, they're all going together. And we're going to continue to see that across the board. So I just want to let you know that we're looking at that. And again, it's just very different from conversations that we've had before, but that's where we're going, and we're starting to get into those things, and we're going to be making those adjustments moving forward. We'll bring you up to speed, but a lot of times we don't have these discussions. You don't know what's in my head. I don't know what's in your head. And these sessions are very helpful to do this. I'm sorry there's so much tonight. You've been very gracious with your time, and I appreciate it. There's just a tremendous amount that we had to go over tonight, and I wanted to share that with you, with Barry, and with the two chiefs tonight, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. It is a great amount of information. I know we've spoken a number of times about different pieces of this, but I appreciate you getting it all together. And I thank the council, my colleagues, for putting up and giving up another night for this, but we did feel it was important to be able to do that and not lessen your committee nights on any other night. So that's why it was done on that, because to take 3 hours out of this night and then, oh yeah, then you're going to go do your business, would have seemed, you know, we would have all been exhausted and rushing things through, and all your work deserves just as much attention. So that's why we didn't want to do it on that night.
And a more thorough update too, and then
Yes.
you don't have to worry about
A full and thorough update.
Mr. Chairman, I know it goes without saying, because every single one of you has been in my office or stopped me at the Y or in the hallway and has asked me questions. So just because we have these massive updates, obviously does not preclude you from picking up the phone, calling me, stopping by, whatever. You have all been very good about that, and I want that to continue.
Absolutely, and I appreciate the access. I think that's so important for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If there's nothing else, move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. I appreciate it, Mr. Churchill. 9:57. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very valuable.
Great, absolutely.